Hello, hello, hello. Happy more or less Saturday. It is just me today. Unless somebody else wants to come on, as usual. Um, Chris is out doing stuff. He may join by phone later if he can. But until and if he does, it's just me. I think I have some. There was a topic I really wanted to talk about, and I totally forgot what it was. But I wanted to save it when there's like an actual. I think I might have a few tweets, and then I know what I want to do real quick. Chris told me about this Iden Paladin person, lady, girl, whatever she is, and Benjamin Boyce is having her live right now, so I wanted to peek in on them real quick. So let me get that set up. For example. All right, here we go.
Just nation in Europe.
In Europe?
For GDP.
Is it America? Because we basically own
Okay, besides that one. The richest, it is a very small country. They have the highest GDP.
Is it Luxembourg?
Luxembourg's right up there. Guess what Luxembourg is?
A very small, very, very small little place.
It is
like
a constitutional monarchy.
A stone from one border to the other, right?
I know a guy from Luxembourg, or used to know a guy from Luxembourg.
Is this a limerick?
No, it could have been one. But I used to be good friends with a guy from Luxembourg. Luxembourg, constitutional monarchy.
Okay.
Switzerland, constitutional monarchy. All these really small, very rich nations are all constitutional monarchies.
And very, I'm sorry to go here, ethnically homogenous. Or genetically homogenous. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Those very, very wealthy nations, though, are largely constitutional monarchies. Now, myself, I'm an absolute monarchist, which I had to took me some.
Versus a constitutional.
Chris, who is this lady?
The reason why is a little bit more complicated in
like
that
the Constitution. Rule me harder, Daddy.
Right. Well, it's it always. But,
okay, I'm interested in the feminization of politics, but I have no idea what they're talking about. Monarchy. You were just watching. Oh, well, I played her because I noticed she was on Benjamin Boyce right now. But Chris, I heard about her from Chris. He follows her or something, and so that's why I played it. And I guess when Chris comes, I'll find out more about what he wants to say about her. Yeah, like monarchy is not going to happen in the United States. No way. I mean, we were founded on no monarchy. George Washington even gave up his power. I think it's two things. People are very restless with not a lot to do or not a lot constructive to do, and they see the world through the window of social media, and so it magnifies. It's like looking through those glasses that make everything look weird, or even kind of like Don Quixote, I guess, where he sees giants in the windmills. So because there's all kind of stuff like cropping up, leftist, communist utopias, Christian theocracies, monarchies. People are latching onto all kind of weird stuff. And we have a perfectly good democracy happening in front of us right now that we could use. Maybe not perfectly good, but it's decent. It's like a good used car that you might need to take it into the shop every now and then, but it gets you Where are you trying to go? Oh. And Richelle, if you want to hop up, you're welcome to. I know we were chatting on Paul's show about the topic came up on PF Jung today about circumcision. That's a non-issue to me. Like that's between because so much of it is cultural. Here's Richelle. Or I don't know why I say morning. I never do this show in the morning. Good afternoon.
Okay. I'm still trying to get all my stuff set up. Okay.
What?
I'm a little crooked.
You're shaking. You're
Yeah.
rocking back and forth.
Okay. Want to talk about circumcision?
Sure. I mean, I'm open to hearing what you have to say about it. To me, it's not even an issue. Like that's between because so much of it is cultural. So within whatever culture, I know my culture, it's very common. That's between the parents and how they want to do their kids. Since it's a currently legal option, like it's an option, so they're not doing anything illegal because it's currently not prohibited. So it just becomes a issue of parental preference.
Is that true of other things? Like is female genital mutilation just between the parents? And it's just their culture. And
Does that happen in the
legal, then it
U.S.?
doesn't matter.
Is that an issue? In
Yeah,
the
it does happen in the U.S.
Well, I'd have to know more about it and its relationship to the circumcision topic.
Well, you need to know more about female genital mutilation.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Here in the U.S., I know in Africa and stuff it was a big issue, but here in the U.S., I don't know much about it at all. But circumcision that's not female mutilation.
Well, so I'm asking you the principle. So in another country, in a Muslim country, where it's legal to perform female genital mutilation, would you say the same thing, that it's cultural, that it's not the government's business? If it's legal,
I
then it's
would
not
say
abuse.
it's probably cultural.
Would you say it's not
If
abuse?
there's cultures in other parts of the world doing it, that seems to indicate cultural. Just
Right.
by that alone,
Does that
without
mean it's
making
not
any other
abuse?
judgment about it.
Does that mean it's not abuse?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know much about it. I read a book in the 90s. I think it was by Alice Walker or one of those people, and it was a novel, and it was all about the genital mutilation in Africa. The main character was a victim of it, and it played a big part in the storyline. And that's the most I know about it is from this book, this fictional novel. But it went into great detail around it because it played such a central part in the story.
And you probably know more about it than most people.
But I didn't associate it as anything that we in the U.S. had to, like, not a big hot button issue here in the U.S. that
Well, it
any
does
of us had to
happen.
worry about.
It's illegal, but it does happen. People do it illegally. In that case, where people do it
But
here
like
in
when
America
an
illegally,
infant
is it
female
abuse?
is born, the doctors don't ask the parent, "Hey, do you want us to mutilate her?"
Right? No, it's not legal. It's not normalized in the general population. But
But
there are groups of people who do
circumcision
it.
is already an approved option, so it's not the same thing as the female version of it. It seems like, at least here in the U.S.
Why does it matter?
Why does it matter for what?
Whether or not it's an approved option.
We'll say again.
Why does it matter whether or not it's an approved option? Is my volume too low?
Maybe. Let me check your settings. I'll bump it up a bit. Okay, go ahead. Why does it matter if what? Now I'm not hearing anything at all.
I see. All right, let me just
Oh,
change.
no, I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you bring that comment back up again? I'm not lying. I didn't say it wasn't cultural. I'm saying that whether or not something's cultural doesn't matter about whether or not something's moral. And I didn't say that it was religious.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I'm not talking about the morality of it in other countries at all. I'm just saying whatever it is, whatever we're looking at, it differs in different parts of the world. So it's cultural.
Right. So
And here in the U.S., circumcision, and I know there's certain religious cultures where it plays a role. And so I know that across the U.S. in different regions of the U.S. there's different rates. So different parts of the U.S. have different cultures around this issue. But I don't think that makes them abusive or whatever you were saying in the chat today.
So
like my mom wasn't an abuser because she had me and my brother circumcised.
So is there never a case in which something that's culturally accepted someplace in time is abusive? For example, in China, foot binding was breaking the feet of little girls and binding their feet so that they would be sexually attractive to men. Was that abusive?
Wait, it depends on what you mean by abusive and how you're evaluating abusive. And then you're going to look at different issues across the world and across history and say, well, that's abusive, this abusive. But what standard of abuse are you using to do that?
Cruel and violent.
I don't think circumcision is cruel, and I don't think it's violent.
Okay, so cruel.
So those two terms right there, there's some subjectivity to them, and unless they have specific legal definitions that would apply in this case. So
I think there's a
what's
spectrum
violent to
of
you may not be
cruelty.
violent to me. Like words are violent
No,
these days.
no, not really. Not the way I define violence. Violence is physically acting upon somebody's body without their consent, or person or property. And cruel is I think that cutting off a piece of a penis without any pain management of an infant is cruel. That's like
What
the
if they do it with
cruelest
pain
thing
management?
you could possibly do. Now, we're talking about the majority of circumcisions in the United States, which does not include pain management. I could not think of
I looked it
anything
up. This
more
came up like
cruel.
a few weeks ago, and I looked it up, and it gave the process, and it did include anesthesia.
I don't think the majority of
So
circumcisions
does
include
that change the
anesthesia.
picture if they're using pain management? Then
No.
it's not cool.
I mean, it changes the picture. I suppose it would be less cruel, but the baby's still going to have to recover. There's pain going forward. It's not just a moment too. There's going to be pain
That seems
going
so
on.
insignificant in the big
Why
scheme
is
of
that
things. Like as an
insignificant?
issue,
Why would it be insignificant to cut the penis of a newborn baby?
the pain that an infant would feel. Like
You
of
think
all
that
the
would be
things going on in the
insignificant?
world, this is not the most horrible thing happening around us.
Okay, yeah, there's some really, really horrible things happening around the world. That is true. But I think that's just whataboutism. I don't think that justifies.
It says local anesthetic is used for newborns, while general anesthesia might be used for older children or adults. So it looks like here in the U.S. there is anesthesia involved.
Local anesthetic, like when you go to the dentist and first they put on the local anesthetic cream, and then at that site that they've numbed a little bit, they give you the shot that really numbs you up. If you put a little cream on it and then cut it off, it's not gonna. Why don't you do this? Why don't you pull up a video and watch the circumcision being done, and then you could tell me if it's cruel and violent.
I've been circumcised. I am circumcised. I don't even remember it.
Yeah, you were an infant. That doesn't matter whether or
Yeah,
not you
but I'm fine. Like,
consciously remember
it
it.
had no impact on my
But you're
life
not fine.
whatsoever.
You're not fine. You don't
Excuse
know that
me?
it didn't affect you.
Well, how do you know better than I do about how fine I am or not as a result of
Because
my
we can
childhood?
look at scientific studies and see that men
I don't
who
need
have gone
studies.
through the
I am that person. I have an entire lifetime of experience with it I could reference directly.
you don't know what you would be like if you hadn't gone through circumcision.
Well, how do you think I'm damaged from it? And not only me, but my siblings and my friends and like pretty much every male I know. I don't think I even knew there was anything. I don't even think I knew there was uncircumcised till I was even an adult. I didn't even
You
know
think
there was such
do
a
you
thing.
think American men are doing okay?
You think it's
I don't
because
think
of
so.
yeah, but do you think it's because of whether they
Yeah,
were circumcised at birth or not determines
yeah.
their how okay they're doing in modern
I
society?
think it affects them a lot, yeah.
Okay, well that's a bold claim. Help me connect those dots.
So circumcision started long ago for a tribe that was going around genociding all the other tribes and taking over their land. And what happens when you introduce a young male infant to the world by inflicting extreme pain upon them is you're teaching them what kind of world they are entering into. And
You
you
talking
are
about as
sev-
infants or like
Mhm.
adolescents when they're going through their
As
initiation?
infants.
Oh.
Yes. You are teaching them that they live in a dangerous world and you are harming their ability to feel safe and to bond with people. And this
That's an
makes them,
inference to me. You don't know, like the act of circumcision, you don't know that that's the result it's having on their
yes, I do.
like all this. You
Uh,
have to show me that when the
you
doctor
told me
does
you don't care about the studies.
this happens in their brain psychologically.
How
All
do
this
you
stuff
want me
is
to show you that?
you can't. I don't think you can. That's why I'm so
Exactly.
curious why you're
Okay.
using it as an argument.
Well, if you don't believe in scientific studies, then I don't know how I would show you evidence of this.
Well, I mean, you can tell me the studies if you're trying to if you're saying there's studies that make that link, but I'm even skeptical of that.
I don't have them like up on hand. Like you would find them just as well as I would. I've studied this in the past, way back. I mean, I ended up having daughters, but I
I don't
studied
think
this.
any serious scientific study has shown a connection between circumcision status at birth and mental health as an
Why do you
adult.
think that?
I don't think that. I don't think that there's a serious scientific study out there. I
Right.
don't even know
Why
how
do
you
you
would
think
begin to
that?
set up a study like that.
Why do you think that? Just because you think it's hard to do that study? That would be a really
Yeah, I
easy
think it'd be
study
a
to
little bit
do.
like all the variables you would have to rule out and control for from infant circumcision working backwards from adulthood.
They
Like, do
do
you have a
that for every
sample of
single study.
adults?
They do every
You
single study you
how would
do,
you rule
you have
out
to factor in other factors. Every single study you do.
well, if there's one, show it to me. I'm skeptical that serious
Well, you could
scientists
look it
would
up just as
even
well as I could.
take this seriously as a
Why
scientific
wouldn't a
problem.
serious scientist wanted to take
Is
that up?
that your argument, is just being incredulous at my beliefs?
Yeah, basically, I'm asking you
Well, do you
why.
have a study then that shows the methodology of how they determine that whether someone was circumcised at birth or not is the reason for their current mental health conditions? I've never seen that claim even in the field of mental health that I work in. Like none of the psychological journals or APA or any, I've never seen someone tie mental health to somebody's
Who
circumcision
would
status.
have an incentive to let you know about that?
But if there's studies out there, if there's scientists that have made this
Answer my
correlation,
question.
do you
Who
have study?
who
You're
would
the one
have
that
the
brought up
incentive?
studies, so do you have them or not?
I already told you.
Otherwise, we're
I've
just wasting our time.
studied this in the past before I knew I was having girls, and I made the decision about whether or not I would circumcise my children. So I don't have it on hand. You can pull it up just as well as I can. I'm sure that if I do
you
pull
brought up the
my
topic. You were the
phone,
one that tried to link
I'm
it to men's mental health, like
I'm
the
sure
way.
that if I found the study and I showed it to you, you would find some reason to disregard it because you're
I don't
making
know. I
a
have to
decision
study
based
first
upon
to know what I would
emotion
do.
because you don't want to believe that your mother's abusive. Because right in the beginning you said, I'm circumcised, my mother's
That
not abusive.
that's not a serious debate.
Yes, it
What you
is.
just said. That's not
How is that not a serious debate? You told me your reason why you don't want to believe it's abusive.
that I that I'm going, like, first of all, you haven't shown me a study. You came on here and you brought up studies, not me.
Do you
And
want me
you
to
brought up a
stop
connection
talking
to men's
and take
mental
time to
health.
go find a study?
And so now when I'm asking for studies, instead of showing me the studies that you brought up, you're going to question my motivation of wanting to
Because
know
you
study
yourself
and
said
anticipate my
your
reaction to
reason.
them, all in the name of protecting my mother, me
Yeah,
having
because
to
that's
see
what you
my mother
said.
as an abuser.
I'm 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 telling you back
That's
what you
not a
said.
logical rebuttal to anything I've said.
You told me the reason why you don't believe it's abusive, and I just mirrored it back to
No, I
you.
don't believe circumcision is abusive. It's done, but it's a medical procedure done by a physician. That's not abuse.
Is it possible for medical procedures done by doctors to be abusive? For example,
Well, I
lobotomies.
guess
Were
I would
lobotomies
have to
abusive?
understand what you mean by abusive first. So
Okay, cruel and
what
violent.
is abusive to you? You said violence
Cruel
and
and violent.
cruelty.
Yes.
I don't consider medical procedures violent. That's not violence. And
When
I
you
don't
have the
consider them
consent,
cruel because you'd have to know the intent of the doctor, and I'm not going to assume that the doctor's doing it for sadistic pleasure. I'm going to assume he's doing it to help the patient.
okay, so concerning the word violence, patients have to give consent. And so when patients give consent, a medical
Are their
procedure is not
guardian?
violence.
Are their guardian?
Mhm.
The parent. In the case of
And
an infant, it
for
would be the parent could give the consent.
mm, and for cruel, I don't think the intentions of the person really matter. Something is cruel or not cruel, and it doesn't
Yeah, oh,
matter
totally.
the
That's
intentions.
totally what makes an action cruel or not, is the intent of the person.
So is it okay to do actions that would generally be considered abusive as long as the parent doesn't intend for it to be abusive and cruel?
Okay, say that again.
If the parent does not have the intention of being abusive, uh, is it impossible for them to be abusive?
Are you talking like outside of circumcision?
Yeah.
Well, for one, you switch from cruel to abusive because I was talking about
Well,
cruelty.
abusive means cruel and violent. So you answer the question however you
It's
want to answer
definitely possible for parents to be violent without meaning to.
it.
I think to be cruel, they would have to mean to be cruel.
So it's impossible for a parent to abuse their child if they don't intend to be abusive?
It depends on what you mean by abuse and how important the cruelty part of it is to the definition. Hello, Tim.
Well, I've already defined abuse. It's cruel and violent.
Right,
And you
and then you're
said
asking me if
it's not
I don't know
cruel.
if that's how I would define abuse. I don't like
Okay, how would you define it?
if you need the cruelty part to be there, then no, it's not abusive. If you can be abusive without the cruelty, if just violence alone is enough to be abusive, which I might accept that it is,
Okay, so we
then
can
I
use
don't
your
think it
definition.
matters if it's cruel or not. It's just that if it's violent.
Okay, we can use your definition. So is it possible for a parent to be violent without intending to? You said yes. So is it
Without
possible
intending to be,
for a parent to be abusive without intending to?
maybe, possibly. Like I'm
Possibly.
not. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's probably a gray area where there could foreseeably be a case where it qualifies as abuse and the parent's not aware or not intending it to be.
have you been following the abuse case of the YouTube channel 8-Passenger Van, where the mother was brainwashed into this cult thing and she was starving and tying up her children, and one of them got loose, went to a neighbor's house, and she recently in sentencing said, I did it, but I didn't intend to. I was brainwashed in this cult. I'm very sorry. Do
Okay.
you think that she was not
Is this
abusive?
what you're like equating to circumcision?
Yes, because
Because in my
especially
mind
because
it's
she
not.
was religiously motivated. She was religiously motivated to beat the demons out of her children. And circumcision, the original reason was
It's a
religious,
medical
and now it's
procedure.
become
It's regulated by the medical industry.
What's the
Whoever,
purpose,
So-
whatever
though?
regulates.
What medical function does it serve? It doesn't serve any function at all. None.
is it possible for medical procedures to be abusive?
The doctor himself. Now, I'm thinking specifically the trans issue. Like I could see that being an argument made
Yeah,
against
that's an
the
example.
doctor. If he's doing a procedure that's allowed by law and regulated under law, he's not doing anything. If it's within law, then I don't see how it could be abusive.
So
But it could
as
be
long as it's
maybe
legal,
the
it's moral?
parent or the kid like pushing themselves into it. But again, that's one of those gray areas we'd have to figure out.
So morality depends on where you are and what the
You
laws
keep
are in that
switching
place.
turns because first you talk about medical procedures and then you switch to morality.
Okay,
I don't think
so
I think medical procedures are morally neutral.
you think medical procedures in all cases are morally neutral?
I'm not going to
The
be
law
absolute about it,
isn't,
say in
though.
all cases. I'm like abortion and stuff like that. But I'm saying in general, medical
well, we're not.
procedures.
Okay, so that's not good reason. You can't make the argument that circumcision is moral because
I'm not.
all
I
medical
don't
procedures
think.
are
I don't.
moral.
I'm not
because you
attaching
don't believe
morality
that.
to circumcision. You are. You're saying
Okay,
it's abusive.
I am.
And I'm not. So we're stuck
Okay,
there
listen.
already.
Okay,
But I want to hear from.
listen.
I want to hear from Tim and Chuck too.
If but you're being illogical. You're making an illogical statement. If your reasoning is circumcision can't be immoral because it's a medical procedure, but then you say
I didn't say
not all
you are.
listen, not all medical procedures are immoral, then that does not logically follow technically.
I didn't say anything about morality at all. You're the one bringing morality into a conversation about medical procedures.
You are denying that
you're putting words in
circumcision
my
is
mouth when you
immoral.
say that I said that.
No, because you are denying that circumcision is immoral, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so then we are having
It's
a moral
morally
discussion.
neutral. It's not a moral issue at all. Whether a parent, at least here in the US, in our culture, whether a parent chooses to circumcise their child or not is not a moral issue in the US. You're trying to make it one. So you have to do the work to convince me that it is. My position is that it's not.
It might be an individual's moral choice, but
Yeah, like within
medically,
their own religion or
not.
culture or whatever.
Can I say something real quick?
Absolutely. Jump in.
Okay, so circumcision, we can most probably assume is tied to the law, as in Torah, Jewish law, right? It's supposed to be moral.
Maybe, but I know that,
Yes,
that Muslim, it plays part in Muslim too, and
which
our
is
culture is
sync
Catholic,
with
and we are all
Judaism.
circumcised
That's
too, so
another
I don't-
Semitic religion that comes 600 AD. So you got Judaism. I mean, you got to look at this. In my opinion, you start as low as you could go. You get down to the very basis of why we would do this, and the reasoning attached to circumcision is along religious and therefore more moral lines, and the idea of law being God's will. I mean, Torah, the Jewish Bible is literally means the law. And, the 10 Commandments, this is a legal framework that the conservatives will use to say, oh, our Western culture and society is based on Judeo-Christian. And that's just false. So I want to get at that base to see like why are we willing to assume that it's okay to look at something so barbaric and immoral as neutral or serving a medical function when it's really just based on Torah, the law, and supposedly God's, and therefore moral reason. It's not God's law. It's not moral. And the Jews stole it from the Egyptians to begin with. So it's a mess that shouldn't even be, we should be like, just toss that out, keep the babies, throw out the bathwater.
Jeff, what does the whatever you look it up on, what does it say is the purpose of circumcision?
Oh, I can ask it.
It's cosmetic.
It's
It comes
not
from
cosmetic.
Judaism. There's no, I mean, we could look that up any which way. You're going to, I will bet
It
my
doesn't
life.
matter where it comes from because it's currently legal. So,
But everything matters where it comes from, or else why are we doing it? Why are we going to perpetuate routine without understanding what end it serves? Why do anything at all if we don't have some reason for maintaining the routine?
it's
Why does it matter if
medical,
it's-
religious, and cultural. Those are the three.
Oh, but okay,
categories
religious,
of
we can
reasons
agree on that.
that
Religious,
What's the
therefore
medical
false.
reason?
There's no medical
Judaism
reason.
Judaism and
No medical
Islam
reason.
are the two religions it cites, but I know my culture is Catholic and everybody there is
Circumcised,
circumcised
Christian.
as well.
But Christians come after Jews, right? Jews.
What's the
say-
medical reason, Jeff?
Let's see. May slightly reduce the risk of urinary tract infections in male infants, although this is uncommon, and good hygiene can also prevent them. It may also reduce the risk of acquiring sexually transmitted infections later in life. It can help prevent problems like phimosis and paraphimosis, foreskin condition.
Wash your balls. I mean, it's like not taking a shower.
Use a condom.
Showering does the same thing. It's not a medic. It doesn't. That's like.
Next time I talk to
What's
my
your
mom,
source?
I'm gonna ask her why she why did she have a circumcision? What did they ask her or tell her?
Because the doctor said, let's get him circumcised.
Exactly.
And she trusted the doctor.
I know back there it was routine. Like it was everybody does it. Like so
I mean, I'm
there's, like,
circumcised too.
there's
so I
probably
mean,
not even any thought involved.
Yeah.
and it's
But they
barbaric.
just don't do it. They come and ask you if you want it done, and
Yeah,
they
but once you have a
explain to
baby
you.
and
then
you're a mom,
parent, and then they say yeah or no. So
but you just had a baby, so you're kind of like not, and it's something we don't think about, and that's the point. We can deliberate and we can make it super complicated, but it comes from Judaism. That's it. And the Jews stole it from the Egyptians. Okay, that's true. Herodotus talks about this. He's one of the only like ancient historians we have as a legitimate source. There's only a few. Herodotus wrote about the Jews.
Do you does the fact that it came from Judaism, is that an argument for not doing it?
Absolutely, because it's false, it's bad reasoning, and people are willing to kill over it. They're willing to cut.
Well, not here.
private
I don't
parts
know
of
of any circumcision like murders in the U.S.
Well, I'm
Just
saying the
started
same
a
reason.
war.
The same reason that informs circumcision is the same reason that we see people making claims to land because God gave it to them and revising history. And because it is the norm, because it's like the middle, that people are like, yeah, we've been doing it for, it doesn't cause any problems. But what they don't want you to do is look behind the curtain and get down to that, the most foundational mechanics behind what's built on top of it. And Judaism it's a really simple story. You got Alexander the Great, and he unifies all around the Mediterranean, right? Like we can think of the Mediterranean as a lake in the middle of, you go down into Egypt and come up into Italy and Greece. And I mean, we could look at a map and see how the Mediterranean would have looked to people back then. They would have looked across the Mediterranean and thought like, what's across the water? That was everything to them. So Alexander went all around. What's that?
That was their world.
Right, exactly. So like the way they're describing the land and the way there's a lot going on culturally, especially with Semitic origins, because there's all types of Semitic peoples. Phoenicians are probably where the people who call themselves Jews come from. There were no ancient Jews, none, zero, not till Alexander. That's 300 BC. And then under Ptolemy II of Philadelphus, he commissioned what's called the Septuagint. And the Septuagint is the very first Jewish text. It's written in Greek, not Hebrew. There was no such thing as Hebrew back then. So if you look on Wikipedia, it's going to say the Semitic people are this, that, Arabs. Arabs are Semitic. So as Jews are killing Arabs and they say, oh, you're anti-Semitic for pointing out that we're killing Arabs. You're killing Semitic people. So who's anti-Semitic now? Anyways, it's a pile of crap. If you look under it, it's very simple. Alexander organized that area and he wanted cultural cohesion. So he said, hey, Canaanites, that's who they were. They were Canaanites. Give me a story of what you people believe in and what you're about, what your history is. And that's the Septuagint. I mean, think about this too. Jews, where do they go to church? They go to synagogue. That's a Greek word, synagogue. That's Greek. Their first text was in Greek. So it's not this ancient law that God gave to people. And it's not what our country, the United States, is based on either. Our founding fathers were all deists. They knew this. Everything I'm saying, they knew. It's written. You could get into it. But it's true. Alexander is the point that Judaism begins. It begins after that. So if we're going to look at that law and say, oh, this is ancient and there's ancient wisdom and it's horse crap any which way you want to look at it. I'd rather get at the truth and say, now let's talk about what's a good reason or bad reason for doing anything while we have free will.
Yeah, that's I'm laughing at what all the topic of circumcision has brought up today.
The penis is up. It's a big deal.
And so most Christians don't practice circumcision, but Americans started practicing circumcision because of Kellogg. And he was this religious freak who hated sex. And he wanted everyone to stop having sex and wanted people to stop masturbating. And so he was like, I know, we'll get people circumcised at birth, even before the Jews at 7 days, even before that. We'll get them circumcised and that will decrease their masturbation habits, which was not effective. But what it is effective is in making it's effective in making a warrior class. And it is no coincidence that Europeans have such low rates of violence and aren't really interested in waging war. But it's the Muslims, the Jews, and America. What?
They don't have low rates of violence in Europe.
Well, more importantly, that's not accurate. Kellogg was a freak, and he was super weird about sex and digestion, but we did circumcise our people. Judeo and Christians, all Christians circumcise their babies because they believe in the law. They believe that when Jesus came, it absolved from the Mosaic law into the Christian law. All Catholics do it, Mormons do it, Baptists do it, Presbyterians do it, and I'm not trying to just be a dick and just like shit on what you just said, because Kellogg was a super freak. And in the Victorian era, this is what some conspiracy theorists call the Second Empire, when all of our cities and states started to become incorporated. There's a whole big story. Look up Second Empire and people. But we have been circumcising our babies, maybe not in day one in the hospital, because there weren't, modern hospitals back then. But it's part of our culture. It's part of the Judeo-Islamic Christian, all believing in one God. So, I mean, we could talk about Kellogg and we could talk about how certain cultures are influenced at certain points in time. But where does it start? It starts back in the ancient times when the Canaanites wanted to differentiate themselves from the Gentiles, right? I mean, we all know the word Gentile. That's it. It's a way to show it's your covenant. Circumcision is a covenant. It's a demonstration.
I don't think it is today. Like not the kind we're talking about that they do on infants in the hospital, because it doesn't have
there's
any
a distinction,
anymore,
but the reason is still. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jeff. I understand you're saying that it's not like all the doctors and moms are saying, "Hey, we're going to be like holy about this." They're not thinking.
No,
that.
I'm just saying, like if you see someone uncircumcised, it no longer means they're a member of that covenant, because they could be from any group now. It doesn't mean it stopped meaning just that one thing.
It's like normal. It's been normalized.
So it's not like a tribal signal anymore.
Not anymore, but that's why I take such an issue with it, because it's such an extreme thing. What's the reason? The medical reasons don't bear out. I mean, we could, if you wanted to really get in the nuts and bolts, and I had time to look up.
There could be aesthetic reasons.
And there's actually an interesting Adam Ruins Everything, Adam Conover, smart guy. Okay, he did one on this, and he showed. I mean, it's anecdotal, but it's still, I think, a pretty good device to use. He used probably actors, but he approached a woman and he's like, "What do you think of this?" And it's supposed to be a picture of an uncircumcised male sexual organ. And the girl's like, it's ugly, right? Uncircumcised, circumcised, male genitalia is weird looking. It doesn't matter. One doesn't make it look better or not, but it's what we're used to. And familiarity is something that, we don't like to question because we're already locked down in this routine. I like to question. I like to be like, earn your keep. If that's why we're doing it, then let's make sure the reason's actually sound. And with circumcision, I don't spend much time thinking about this these days, but other people have. And when it comes down to it, there's no medical reason for it. The marginal reasons that can be presented are so tertiary, third, three orders out, that it's not a sound argument. It's apologia. It's apologia. It's an excuse. It's a counter argument to the good one. The good argument is there's no reason we should be doing this. If you want to, that's fine. You can even grow it back. There's weights you can hang to the skin that stretches it down. But it still comes down to the same thing. Religion started this. And since we don't think in those terms anymore, maybe we should readdress the reasons we have norms.
At this point, it's secularized. The option is out there, and I would need a very good reason, because since the option's been out there for so long, I would need a very good reason to restrict it.
It's cutting penises, though. Like, why would you need a good reason to not do it versus do it? Why shouldn't it be the opposite of that? Why shouldn't it be you need a good reason to do it? Because there is none. Why are you saying?
I'm circumcised myself, and I know many, like most of the people I know are circumcised, and none of us have issues. Like, never once have we talked about any issue that we had because of it. So for us circumcised people, it whatever y'all think it's doing to us, none of us are bothered.
You don't know what you would be like if you hadn't been circumcised.
Yeah,
well, and just like, go find the people that weren't and show me what they are that I'm not.
Well, I told you that those studies have been done, and you denied it.
Well, you didn't show them. You brought them.
You want me to stop talking?
You used them as an excuse
want me to go find it?
I was trying to protect my image of my mother, which is not.
You said that you were trying to protect the image of your mother. You were the one who brought up your mother.
No, you did. You said, I don't want to face the fact that my mom is an abuser.
We can go back.
You can rewind the stream. You can rewind the
stream.
You
said it, and I repeated back to you what you said.
He didn't say protect the image of his mother.
She did. She says the reason. She goes, even if I show you studies, you're not going to believe them because you don't want to believe that your mom is an abuser. So you're going to find ways to like rationalize away the stuff.
Because you said it's not abuse because my mom's not an abuser.
Welcome, Chris.
It ain't mom's fault. His mom just had a baby. She ain't thinking, and like you said, we all do it anyway. So it's easy. The slope is greased.
When I had my son, it was a both parent. They sat us down. They explained everything to us and left the choice up to us. They gave us the information.
Like, what was their pitch?
It really wasn't a pitch. It was just explaining how some people have trouble.
Because you knew going in that y'all weren't surprised by it, right? Like y'all knew.
I want to hear what Chuck is going to say.
Go ahead, Jeff. Finish your thought there.
You knew before he was born that y'all were going to have to make that decision. Y'all weren't surprised by it that day, right? Like people that have babies know at some point they're going to have to decide.
Correct. If it's a male, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they gave us the information. They gave us time to think about whether we wanted to have it done or not. They explained the benefits of doing it earlier rather than later. The pros and the cons.
Did they tell you?
There would be no memory of it.
What did they tell you were the benefits?
The cleanliness of having the procedure done. You're less subject to getting infections, because I've known quite a few guys that have suffered infections because
they didn't. Bullshit. I love you, Chuck, but that's bullshit. Take a shower. It's like, why aren't your ears infected? Why aren't your fingers infected? It's any other part of your body has skin. Keep it clean. Why are you getting infections? You're not showering. There's nothing wrong with it. I love you, Chuck, but that's bullshit.
Are there any uncircumcised people that want to come up and
there you go?
I don't know what their experience is, whether that's true or not.
I got plenty of friends that rock it themselves and made that choice for their children. a point of comparison we can use is that Adam Conover, Adam Ruins Everything. It's pretty neutral because it just lays out the fact if there's such a thing as both sides, which there really aren't. But if we want to pretend, it's as close as you're going to get. And the only leg they have to stand on is the cleanliness thing, which falls on its face because why aren't we getting infections everywhere else on our body? Just keep it clean, marginally. Shower once a week even. You don't need to like go bend over backwards. There's plenty of anecdotal and medical data to back all this up. You can believe me or not.
Why aren't we removing the labia of baby girls so that they have less UTIs?
Or more parts on our body.
Let's cut
It
off.
just seems like
breasts.
such a trivial issue to divide us over. Like
Cutting penises up?
Mean
That's
anything.
a big deal. It's
Of
trivial
all
to
the
pretend
things in
that
the
it's
world
trivial.
to polarize us, why add this one to it?
You brought it up.
It doesn't. It carries no meaning whatsoever to me. What somebody does with their child.
But like as a Satanist, consider how toxic religions are and see how far it goes. From people are so afraid to pump the brakes just because it's what they're used to.
I don't believe the medical community is doing this for religious reasons.
They're not behind it.
Right.
It's just
that's what at this point
it's
become secular. It's a
money.
Secular.
It's been
Medicare
secularized.
stops
It's not
covering it.
secular. It's considered a secular norm, perhaps, but secular means there's no religious motivation.
At this point in
behind it.
history, we have to deal with it as it is today with us.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm telling the truth and saying it's disgusting.
And so because
it's
it's
no reason to
existed
apologize
so
for
long, to restrict it and go back to to prohibit it for whatever reason and go back to not having it as an option, I would need really strong reasons for it because it has been the norm
paying for it.
Sure.
Should the government be paying for it? Do the government insurance?
Good question. Great question.
I don't know.
It's not a religious procedure.
It is because there's no other reason for it. Doesn't mean just people's intent. This is you were
It
talking
doesn't
about
matter.
court last
Either
week.
religious or cultural or aesthetic. It doesn't matter.
Granted.
There's no medical justification for it. Should the government be paying for it?
Well, then there's no justification for Planned Parenthood.
Do they pay for adult circumcision? Like, do they pay for like poor Jewish people when it's time for them to get circumcised, or do they have to do that on their own?
Good question. If the doctor will sign off and say there's a reason, which we know doctors are plenty happy to do, then they may. But you know how insurance works. It's just like court. You guys were talking about court last week. You were talking about, Jeff, you were saying you want the judges to do the most discretion. You don't want experts to be. Do you remember that conversation?
I don't want experts.
I agree with you. I agree with
making legal decisions, having undue influence over legal decisions. But I don't want the courts having undue influence in making scientific decisions. I want the experts to make those.
Well, sometimes they have to.
Everyone needs to stay in their lane and keep it more bounded.
Why?
So that we don't have judges telling us what science is, and we don't have the scientists tell us.
Okay, relative to court proceedings, maybe, but as individuals, people having children, getting medical procedures, perpetuating circumcision and defending it for no good reason, even though we claim ourselves as Satanists, which is like, make good choices on your own, get the best information you can, and be about representing those choices as you enact them. It's a stressful process because everyone around you is going to use this bad reasoning that's rooted in terrible religions and revised history to keep it as it is. That's bad. That should upset people and get you out of your lane, You
talking about with circumcision?
I'm drawing it all one big bow on the whole thing. I'm saying people as individuals are responsible for the decisions they make as much as we can be. So get to the bottom of what your reasons are based on and address those, and society won't need to field all the fallout. We won't need to labor over what judges versus experts should do because we as informed citizens can handle our own stuff, We shouldn't need an authority to be like, good job, bad job. We should kind of have a sense of what's right and wrong on our own. So what I'm saying is as law proceedings go, when we talk about experts or not, a judge is going to be an expert in what's just and what's right. Technology can fall under their purview, plenty. Some judges are better or worse, but that's why they're elected for life, because it's not up to you to agree or not. They're the final buck. I'm saying, isn't it better if we as citizens are the ones who are ultimately responsible for our good or bad decisions, rather than having to defer to an authority to give us a thumbs up or down? And I'm also saying Satanism, at least Anton LaVey anyways. He's like, look at how toxic this norm is and deconstruct it. Get out of your lane and pick a lane that actually serves you rather than the lane you've been prescribed by this bad religious, series of norms that don't ever go anywhere except needing to ask someone if you did it right or wrong. Like, you should know the difference between right or wrong. That's a lot, but like, that's the deal. Each of us are responsible for pulling out the right or wrong answer. And if you got the wrong answer, should it land on you, or is it somebody else's responsibility? Whose responsibility is it for you to be right or wrong?
Well, you said it with the most awesome hat on, so I couldn't stop it. I love your hat.
But who's responsible for you being right or wrong? Like, any of us. Who's the authority when it comes to us getting it right? I would like to think we are, right?
I think you're going to get different answers from different people.
And that's why I'm asking.
Like where they
that's
ground
where the contention
their morality.
It's not about circumcision. It's not about this, that, or the other. It's about what you think is right or wrong. And what I think is wrong is plainly demonstrated in this barbaric. Yes, I know people aren't saying I'm doing this for religious reasons now because they're ignorant fools. And that's a problem. It might not feel like it, but it's still a big problem. So I can explain why it's a problem, because people are cutting pieces of their genitalia off for no good reason and then apologizing for it as if there's still some reason when it's all downstream of bad religious.
I mean, there's babies. I know people that get their babies' ears pierced. Like, so we start outlawing that too?
I'm not talking about outlawing anything. I'm saying, as an individual, read the writing on the wall. And then be responsible.
It sounded like you and Richelle were on the side of restricting.
It disgusts me personally, but I would
not forced. You have a choice. It's not forced.
I'm not saying anything that I don't want.
That's where I come down on the issue. It's forced on the child.
Anytime you have choice, I'm very suspicious of reducing or diminishing that choice. I think choice is good.
You have a choice.
And I'm going to come down on the side of choice unless there's a reason to limit one of those choices, and I don't see one in this case.
It's cutting genitals, and it does scar the child mentally. They scream and yell.
It's no different than what Jeff just said about piercing a baby's ear.
It's hella different. There's 10 million nerve endings in your genitalia. Your ears are cartilage that you can lose. They're not an organ. Our sexual organs are an organ. We need those to survive. We don't need our earlobes.
Well, for whatever reason, the other argument prevailed, and so it's currently the current norm as it exists now is that it is acceptable.
I think that medical procedures do have to justify their existence. The medical community needs to be able to say, this is why. This is something that we do. This is why insurance and government insurance should be paying for it. And if they cannot justify that, the government and the government should not be enforcing the insurance companies to be paying for it.
I have some. I just asked the eye. It says 18 states currently exclude routine infant circumcision. So it looks like it varies. It depends on the state as to whether it's covered by.
And that hugely affects how many baby boys are circumcised, because parents don't care enough to actually pay for it themselves.
So there are some states that do not pay for the circumcision, and there are some states that do.
There's no good reason for it, and that's why society's failing. Because people are doing a bunch of bullshit without any reason, and they get all worked up about it, even though they still have no reason. And they're the ones who
haven't given a reason, Jeff. Give a reason. Jeff, give a justification.
I'm tempted to call my mom and ask her why.
Yeah, she's just gonna say, call her. That she's gonna say, because the doctor told me to.
Well, okay, let me see if she's around.
You don't know what a mommy's gonna say.
Moms are awesome. It's not their fault. I'm dealing with this on a fundamental level, and we as citizens have a responsibility to inform ourselves and make cultural and financial and social decisions on our own.
It was the same thing with the jab. Give me all the information, which they did, and allowed me to make my decision, which we did, and therefore we didn't.
They did not give us the information. They hid the information from us and censored those of us who were trying to share
I got information when I asked.
You did not get all of the relevant information.
But I did my research.
the information, there were studies that were suppressed. The companies knew things that they were not telling us, and that we found out later from lawsuits. So that is not factually correct. We did not have informed consent. No one had informed consent.
Wouldn't it be cool if we took this money and we just educated our kids in public schools, which costs so much money when you have to pay property taxes? It's very frustrating, especially if you don't have kids in school.
Abolish
But
public
wouldn't it be
schools.
great if we just educated people more so we wouldn't be so lost? Like, I'm sorry, Richelle, you sound like you're an anti-vaxxer, which is a political position, not a medical one. And I can respect not wanting it, but there's the heart palpitations and arrhythmia and all that stuff. Guess what? When you get COVID, it's even worse. So
I
when we
didn't
get into the
actually make a
weeds,
statement about the vaccines. What I
I got
actually said was
voicemail.
about informed consent. I made a
well,
statement
got it.
wouldn't
about
it be
informed
great if we
consent.
understood what we were consenting to because we were informed to begin with? That's my point.
Yep.
Get at the foundation,
Yes,
and we
that's
don't
exactly
have to
the point I was
deliberate
making.
over all this BS where we're already torn apart. So much so that we can't put anything together and get on the same page. And we
That's
think
my argument. Like, why worry about circumcision? Because since we're already torn apart.
and
Why
I
worry
agree
about
with you.
trans stuff? Why do you argue about trans
I
stuff?
don't
Just let
have
it
a
be.
trans kid. They're not my kid. I'm not that
Oh,
worried.
you don't care?
I don't have a trans kid. I don't have a kid.
You pro or
That's not an issue
anti-trans,
that I'm gonna.
Richelle?
That's actually gonna directly
anti.
affect my life in any way. So if people want to fuck up with their kids, I'm not that invested in the issue.
Are you anti, Richelle? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, I'm anti-trans.
I've gotten there. I'm there now. Not on
What
individuals.
does anti-trans mean? Like, you don't think trans people?
Well, as a movement, right? As like a one group. So okay, let me try on this. Bring it down to the instead of the minutia. Let me get at the foundation. Richelle mentioned something about should states or the government be paying for medical procedures. That's one substantive argument on both sides. That is a good argument because people operate, and I find a lot of them are Canadian YouTubers, and they don't actually understand what it means to be responsible for your own choices. But anyways, there's an argument that we need to finish that goes like this. Should the state be responsible for our health or not? And I say no, because we mostly see it as sick care, not health care. That's one conversation. The other conversation is marginalized and discriminated against classes of people. You've got gender and you've got race and religion, and I agree with those. So does the Supreme Court, and so does our, those are classes that you can't legally discriminate against. People with the trans movement are trying to make it one big homogenous class, as if there's one class of people, and then they want the government, just like medical arguments, as one blanket uniform authority to protect people from being discriminated against. And that's horse crap, because right now there's such a tendency for kids especially to make themselves feel more important, or justify their quirks by saying, you know what, I do feel different on the inside. And they go down this path that just leads them further into desperation. And they need people to endorse what they're doing, or else it's violence against them. And it just,
what about the ones? Yeah, I agree with that, like the hypersensitivity and the bullying tactics. But what about the ones that it does help them? They are happier.
And that's why I'm for individuals, quirky as hell. I love them. I love quirky people. And most of them agree with me. I've got tons of gay and lesbian friends, as well as people online that are gay and lesbian, that are saying, you know what, this trans shit is obnoxious. Because it is. It's just obnoxious. It's just.
I think the activism is obnoxious.
That's what I'm saying. As a class, as one big class where there's a movement to support, or you're either pro or you're anti-trans. And the thing is, there's no class of people. They're individuals that, and here's the kicker, if they're transgendered, then they're going to want to pass as whatever gender they're trying to transition to. So we don't even need to talk about it, because you're supposed to be a woman or a man. Where it gets more
some of them
difficult is the neo-pronoun. Yeah, and that's where I agree. Individuals on an individual basis, it can be helpful, it might not be, but it's up to you as an individual to plant your flag where you need it to be and not make apologies, because it does help. It's like, what works for you. Making it one big political conversation where it's an us versus them, which is what it's turned into, is a shit show.
They do that with everything, though.
And it's pushed what progress we've made for gay, lesbian, actual transgendered. I don't know if bisexual is necessarily a real thing. It's made it worse for everyone that was marginalized socially, because it's this big win or lose fight that's rooted in bad reasoning and just all kinds of, I mean, it's just, there's not one good thing about it.
I think that it's immoral to do body modification on children for non-medically necessary reasons. So before, when you asked about getting your ears pierced, I am against piercing the ears of babies. I'm against any sort of the medical transition of children for transgender reasons. I'm against circumcision. I'm against any of it.
If it's currently legal to me, then it's not immoral. It's not a morality issue.
But legality is based on morality, because
well, no, I'm of the belief you can't legislate morality anyway. So,
but that's what law is for.
Jeff,
No,
back when it was back when it was legal. Jeff, back when it was legal for a husband to rape his wife, was that moral?
The Bill of Rights, based on morality. The Constitution, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It's morality. It's in pursuance of the ideal.
Slavery was probably not moral either.
Okay, so the state. So do you still think that it's true that if it's legal, it must be moral?
Around the stuff we're talking about, yes.
Why? Why around the stuff we're talking about, but not stuff of the past?
Because you're trying to moralize something that's not been traditionally a moral issue.
Does it matter whether it's traditionally been a moral issue or not?
You can attempt to moralize it, but everybody else doesn't have to. Like, I don't have to have the same moral.
I didn't say that everybody has to.
That you do.
I didn't say that everybody has to. I said that I am making a moral argument for something, and you are rejecting that reason.
But I'm saying, as long as something's legal, like as long as it's, what were the things? Circumcision,
lobotomy, rape of a wife. I mean, slavery. There's lots of things.
No, not. I'm talking about the current one, the ones we were talking about like 2 minutes ago in that question. Not
transgender
the
children.
Stuff. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Like, all of that stuff is currently legal, so I don't waste my time worrying about it morally. It's not an obvious moral violation to me. It's not. Like, circumcision is not an obvious moral violation to me.
Why?
For all the reasons we went over today.
Why? No, you didn't give me
Wait, there's
any
an
reasons
echo. Somebody, there's an echo. It's just I don't feel the same. I don't feel the same way about it that you do. I don't see it as violence. I don't see it as cruelty. I see it as a routine medical procedure. I am circumcised, and all the people I know, and we don't have issues from it. So what you're describing about it doesn't resonate with me as a person from that class that you're describing.
Let's look up a video of circumcision. Let's watch one right now.
No, I'm not playing that on here.
I agree with Jeff that there should be a priority of concerns, but I don't agree about the binary. I don't think it's like, and I don't mean non-binary, binary. I mean binary, like it's not moral and it's been okay, so it stays okay. I disagree with the binary, but I do agree that we can't, like you're saying, Richelle, you're saying you're against all body modifications and all that. I would take so many issues with that. I mean, like glasses. What about glasses? LASIK.
That's not a body modification, and that's for a medical reason.
But why are you the one to determine that? So, like, the point is, if we're going to trust doctor, why are you the one who gets to make the determination off of what medical procedures are necessary or not? When you're not,
because that's my job as
about
the
medical reasons.
It's my job as a parent.
Okay, but that doesn't qualify you as an expert. That makes you responsible for your children, not other people's children.
I never said I was a medical expert.
Well, then what gives you such certainty to rule against people with such moral? You're so absolute. So no body modifications. That's an extreme position that I think we could tear down pretty easily. But the problems I'm concerned with are how we put this in priority. What's the most important thing that we should be looking at? And what it is we've got a population that's aging. We have the baby boomer. You know, they were everywhere.
That's totally irrelevant. That's not what I'm
It's totally relevant. This is what I'm getting at. This is the prioritized thing we should look at. Right now, we are living in a society that has aged out. And
so we're not allowed to talk about the morality of body modification of children.
You're allowed to do whatever you want, but if you're right or wrong matters.
So it's
And right
wrong
now,
of
the
me to make this
priority, when we're
argument
looking at these
because
are
we have
social
other
and political
problems?
concerns. These are social and political concerns, and we have to prioritize. We can't use a litmus test
Grandma
where it
first.
is or isn't good or bad. We have to say why it's bad, why it's good, what happens if we keep doing it, etc. You got to trace, you got to draw the thread where it goes. And the priority, the point of priority that I'm looking at is on a societal level. If you're going to lump all the United States together as one big thing, which it's not, or you're going to lump the West together as one big thing, which it's not. And I'm not saying anybody said that. I'm just saying a lot of people do lump it together.
You use a lot of words without saying anything.
Well, you can think that, but it's not true. If you want to go back through it, I can help you understand. But what I am saying is right now in society is collapsing because there's no one to work the jobs. Teachers are quitting in droves. Doctors are signing off on unnecessary medical procedures so they can keep making money. Big
Are you a medical expert? How can you make that statement?
And not
How can you make that statement? Who do you think you are?
Because I have spent tons of time, honey, digging into this. I know of what I speak.
I'm saying to you what you said to me. Do you hear how stupid that sounds?
No. See, you said you made a claim and then you drew a conclusion. And the conclusion is wrong. But your claim is what gives me the right to do it is I understand what the hell I'm talking about.
You used to me. You used that argument on me, so I'm using it back on you to show you how stupid it is.
Well, it didn't work, and if that was your intent, you didn't get there. The thing that you're trying to say is I have no right to moralize, and that's not the thing that I said against you.
You told me I have no right to moralize.
You generalize about morality as
moralize.
Body modifications or no. You're like against kids getting their ears pierced. And in my opinion, that's making a mountain out of a molehill when we have a much larger
I'm not making a mountain out of it. Jeff asked me my opinion. I answered.
If you feel that body modifications and the medical industry is so out of control that you have to start deliberating about all these specific concerns, then you're making mountains out of several molehills.
My point is you can that it's everyone's responsibility to do their research
out,
and be
zoom out,
for their
zoom out, see more, so you can see more, and then you'll be qualified to moralize.
The problem is society. Whataboutism argument, and it's bullshit.
Well, you can think that, but give me a substantive response, and I'll know how to.
That is my response. This is just whataboutism. You're
I
just saying,
even
there's
to
other
the point
arguments to worry about.
Oh, there's other arguments to worry about. There are.
So you have no response to what I'm saying. So you're just saying, what about this other stuff? What about old people? What about them? We weren't talking about old people. We were talking about the morality of body modification.
My response to such an extent that I don't want to hear from you again. Let me finish my damn point, and then you can try.
I was having a conversation with Jeff, and you
everyone gets to talk
over me.
Let me finish this one point, and I will step back for a minute. The point is, as we look at society, you have to look at different sectors, maybe in the economy, or you can say, whatever branches of the government, there are different categories. Society at large, we have teachers, we have bus drivers, we have different people that do different things for different reasons. And the reasons that they do those things have been lost in the incentive and profit. Okay. In addition to that problem, we have a population that has aged out, and the kids that are supposed to take their place are not ready. And there's social media. There are other problems as you ratchet out that explain what we should be focused on. And if you're worried about what's right and wrong for kids, then you were lost in the sauce, because there is a human nature argument that trumps all that bullshit.
I shouldn't be worried about how we treat children because of an aging population.
And I want to give Homelander a chance to get in too. He just hopped on.
No, I'm here. What's up, Jeff?
Welcome. What's on your mind about this?
I don't know. I'm kind of agreeing with both sides here about the argument. I think really it just comes down to the individual. I wasn't circumcised. I got my son circumcised, but unlike Chuck, the doctors didn't sit down with me and discuss anything. They just basically asked, and being new parents, we really didn't, know much better. So we went ahead and got it, done anyway. As far as kids remembering trauma from it, I would have to say that's dog shit, because my son doesn't remember his circumcision whatsoever, nor has he ever shown signs of any trauma from it. But I do agree that, the argument about the whole, being against, removal of foreskin, whether it's for religious reasons or health reasons, whatever reason you want to give it, it really is just it really does come down to, one, your kind of religious affiliation and your moral standing. Because for someone like me who's Christian, I didn't do it for a religious aspect. Being a new parent, I wasn't really, hip to the situation. But, a lot of the times when I get in these debates or arguments, I notice that the same people who say that they're against, getting foreskin removal are the same people who are completely okay with kids getting hormone blockers and, a 10 or 11-year-old wanting to change their sex when, I can tell you right now that, most 10-year-olds don't think about whether they're a girl or a boy, So really it comes down to a morality-based perspective. If you're doing it for religious reason, you're doing it for religious reasons. If you're doing it for what you would consider a medical reason, it's for a medical reason. But I find, it's very rare that you get a lot of cases of people who have had complications with circumcision. I've only spoke to about 2 or 3 middle-aged guys who were circumcised. They didn't have a say-so in it. They resent their parents because they felt like they didn't have a choice in their, in their own life about whether they could be circumcised or not. And, they described about how they have complications in their adult life with circumcision. And I think it really is a very rare case. Most of the time it depends on, what you're born with. Some people who are born with, a bigger package, sometimes when they're growing up, the circumcision causes problems because the skin doesn't grow normally with their length or their width, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a very small percentage of people who have had problems with their circumcisions. And from the men who I've talked to are 10, 15, 20 years to me, have always said that their sex life has been better because of the circumcision. But, that really comes down to, you've been circumcised your entire life. As someone who's not circumcised, I'm glad that I wasn't circumcised. I wouldn't say I would probably hate my parents if I was, but,
Do you
my brother was circumcised, and he, according to him, he's got no problems either. So, I think it's just a very small percentage of cases of where the circumcision is, a problem. But I did, the only thing I don't like is knowing that you have no say so in them selling your child's foreskin. And they can get anywhere upwards to $10,000 to $15,000, if not more, depending on who's buying it, where they're selling it, etc. And even though that skin goes into skin grafts for people with amputated feet, people with burns and stuff like that, but still, the parents nor the child get to see any of that money. So for me, that's the only biggest problem. Like if I decide to have my child's foreskin sold because I decide to get him circumcised, I think that child later in life should get some type of incentive or check, even if it's just a few $100s here. Thank you for your contribution. You help give someone some new skin. Because I know someone who got a skin graft on their foot from diabetes, where they had a toe removed and they needed a skin graft. And we ended up finding out that it was baby foreskin that was used. And it came with a little letter that, it's very rare, but it comes with a little letter that says, the family that donated this skin wanted to let you know how much they care. I think it was like a Christian facility, but,
wow.
I think I know
That's
that, yeah,
fucking horrifying.
that is pretty wrong. But I really do say, it really just depends. Me personally, if I could go back in time, I would undo it, just because I think my son should have had the choice on, I don't know very many adults later in life who go, oh, I want to cut off my foreskin. But I as religious, I wouldn't say really religious, as spiritual as I am regretful of my decisions. But later in life, if my son starts to show complications, I'll walk him through it. I'll be there with him 100%. It's a decision that really, especially if it's in the moment, if you're not properly educated, and whoever was talking about the doctor is just there for a paycheck, you are absolutely right. As someone who has basically been dying for the last 7 to 8 years from diabetes, and who has watched not only their mother be malpracticed and gaslit on with pharmaceuticals and by doctors and psychiatrists. I can tell you that a majority of the time, like with the nurses and the what do they call them, the midwife nurse who deals with the, you know, maybe it's because they spend all day dealing with hundreds of parents. Maybe they, you know, their tenderness and their caring, you know, fades away after seeing hundreds of people every single day. But personally, just from my personal experience in the medical place of watching, maybe 2% of the people who are there genuinely love human beings. They're there to care for them and take care of them. But as someone who's been in and out of nursing homes with family members and have seen it, you know, always get a second opinion. That's all I've got to say. Always get a second opinion, no matter what the situation is. And if you got to, get a third and fourth opinion, because most of the time the first two doctors are just going to tell you whatever it takes to get more money out of your insurance or more money out of your pocket. So.
Frank, did you like it? I'm sorry, real quick. Tim, we might have to pimp Satan out so I can get a like from my channel. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Oh, nice. Thank you. Satan won't mind.
Well, you see, and there you go. You know, that I do kind of find it funny that some Satanists that I have met seem to be more morality based in their decisions than what you would quote unquote call religious people. I mean, I do agree. You know, it is.
I consider it a religion.
Well, I know a lot of people do. It's you know, it's a very slippery slope when you get into, you know, psychology and medical stuff, you know, like with the whole, you know, trans community and all this other stuff that has to do with what it really comes down to a person's choice. You know, a person chooses to do whatever. No one really forces you to do what you're doing except for you, unless someone's put a gun to your head. So, you know, I agree with both sides of the fence, but I mean, when it really comes down to it is, you know, I think my biggest problem is that in some states, you know, if your child at 10, 11, 12 years old says, I want to be a girl, and they tell someone at school that they want to, you know, start transitioning, and if the parents are against that transition, you can basically be arrested for child endangerment or child cruelty.
I'm going to ask her. So,
Satan broke my camera.
Homelander, do you appreciate that I'm against all body modification of children?
I mean, I do. You know, I think personally, you know, I've never had an ear pierced, and I don't have very many. My sisters never got their ears pierced when they were little kids. You know, personally, I don't even like watching my son get a vaccination. So I'd be damned if I'm going to sit there and watch my son get an ear pierced, even if he chose to do it himself. You know, I don't think small children should have any type of body modification because, I mean, in all reality, why does a little girl need an earring? I mean, let's look at it from a straightforward point of view. What does a child need an earring? Because I've seen little kids with hoop earrings that are as big as the adult earrings. And I'm just thinking, why does an 8-year-old girl need earrings that's big enough for my fist to go through it? You know, or the same people who let their children wear, you know, makeup that's clearly put in a way to attract what you would assume is a grown man. Because I've walked around town and seen girls as young as 11, 12 years old wearing makeup that you would see a grown woman wearing at a bar, you know. But I think it really comes down to the degeneration of society. So I'm only 29, and I can tell you in the last 12 or 13 years, I have seen the younger generation, those born, even people who are my age, are just the same as kids who are nowadays. And it really just comes down to a degeneration of society. They've done it through your schooling, they've done it through your media. And now that, you know, when I started out, MySpace was the biggest thing on the internet. Everyone loved MySpace. You could get on there and put a background as your picture. It was the coolest thing, you know. But you didn't hear of the I don't want to use quotations, mental health issues that you have nowadays in society, to the point, you know, society is on such a degeneration or a degradation, whatever, you know, word you want to describe, corrosion of mentality and the, I guess you want to say, American values, to the point where, you know, it's going to get to the point where basically, don't be surprised if American society starts enacting like a national purge. I mean, you're getting to a point in society where people are killing each other over the smallest things. You can't look at someone the wrong way. You can't even look at someone the right way nowadays. You know, you can't trust a cop without an acorn falling on the car and him thinking he's under attack and, you know, tells his partner to light up a car, you know, with an innocent, you know, person in the back. So, I mean, you know, the mental, I'm not big on good words to use, but I would say the mental hive mind of human society every single day is corroding away to the point where going outside and shooting someone is almost normal in today's society. And, you know, I think the biggest problem is that everyone is focusing on America's problem. Of course, America has its own problems, but, you know, the biggest problem is that, you know, people aren't paying attention to the bigger scope and scheme of things, and the population's mental stability is not even a part of their agenda. You know, they don't have to worry about killing us if we're killing ourselves in multiple other ways. You know, you don't have to just take away food stamps and EBT and TANF and, you know, government income housing to make people want to, you know, loot the stores. I mean, look, all you have to do is kneel on someone's neck and take away their breath, and, you know, half the country is, you know, rioting in peace. So, I mean, you know, as much as I want to sit here and say, you know, worry about, you know, what are happening to children, and you are correct that we need to worry about what's happening with the children, because the children of today are going to be the adults of tomorrow. You know, I'm 29 years old, and I know friends who I went to elementary school with, and either half of them are already dead because they got into drugs, committed suicide, they're in prison, they're in jail, or they're 100% not the person that I remember sharing a first to second grade, you know, class with them.
I think that the degeneration of society has everything to do with this attitude of moral relativism, that, oh, well, everyone has their own moral opinion and you can't really judge other people, and you should just mind your own business and not try to influence how other people act. We shouldn't have social norms. We shouldn't shame people. We shouldn't be talking about it. Just mind your own business. This is why society is degenerating, because we're not, like, when you're not even allowed to say basic things like, I don't think that we should be doing body modification on children without medical reason, and people flip out like, how are you a medical expert? How dare you have an opinion about that?
You are mischaracterizing me and not even trying to understand what I said. That's not what I said at all. If you want to understand what I said, I can help you get there, but you're wrong. I didn't say you don't have the right to say it.
It'll take you an hour to say anything. So
well, give me 10 seconds then, you condescending jerk. That's not what I said. You're like I-Fi, where you just want to be right, and you have all this emotional baggage attached. You just want to be heard. And that's fine, but you said no one's letting you say. You obviously said it. What? And I didn't say that you don't get to say it. I said that if you want to make, what I meant to say is, if you want to affect a better outcome, you need to see humans as they are and address your perception.
Oh, I see humans
because it's not according with reality. There's not a degeneration of society.
I understand.
There are reasons.
I understand reality perfectly. Thank you.
You can say so, but that's the problem. You're so arrogant that you're putting your emotions, the cart in front of the horse, and you're driving it so hard for a reason that does not check out.
Who's triggered?
Triggered? I'm upset all the freaking time. People say you're coming in hot. I say, no shit, the world's on fire. There are reasons to be upset.
Well, yeah,
but every opportunity to look things up and find out, and they don't.
I don't think the biggest problem in society right now is whether boys are getting their foreskins removed or whether girls are getting their ears pierced. There's a much bigger issue, as much as that is part of the issue, because that shapes.
You brought up a good point. If you keep the foreskin, there's embryonic stem cells in there, which can cure cancer for you later. They have all kinds of benefits. You keep the umbilical cord and the foreskin, and that gives you access to medical treatment that most people don't have. It's technology. So if we oriented ourselves to reason why we do things, and we checked our emotions.
Is it morally okay to chop up children?
What is morality? What is morality based on?
Oh my God. Is it morally okay for adults to chop up
You can't hand wave what is the reason for morality.
I think it really depends on what your intention I think it really depends on what your intention with said practice is for. It's different if you're like chopping off the foreskin of children to like sell it to your enemies to make a blanket out of foreskin for no actual purpose, compared to collecting the foreskin of, let's say, 24 children, and then taking that foreskin to a burn victim who's lost, a majority of their back from a fire trying to save their child. And because of that donated skin, that person now has a at least somewhat decent, better quality of life. That's fine. But when you get into a more nefarious reason, I'm not trying to jump on, that community, but to sit here and say, oh, my child wants to be a female, so I'm going to then allow my child to go and get their genitalia cut off to become the opposite sex. Later in life, boom, now they're regretting it. They wish they can reverse it, no longer can. That's a completely different ball field than, okay, well, I just had a child. Do you want to have their foreskin removed? Yes, I had my child's foreskin removed. After my child came back and I looked at it, I broke down crying. It broke my heart to sit here and think, oh my gosh, I put my child through that. But knowing that basically 100% of that foreskin, every bit of it is donated to medical institutions and research universities that help, donate body organs and eyeballs and other, skin and other stuff that people need from deceased people in order to give people who are still alive on this earth at least a decent, better quality of life. It really just depends on what the nefariousness of the reasons are for.
I don't think the nefariousness or the intentions matter at all. I don't think it is morally okay to sacrifice the children for the health of other people. You have a right to your own body. You should not be having pieces cut off of you, even if it's to help somebody else. No.
I agree. That's the only part where I think it's wrong for children. If a grown man wants to go out there at 20, 30 years old and have some of his foreskin removed to say donate it, if that's the choice that they give him, by all means. But what it really comes down to is that people like you are never going to change the minds of millions or billions of other people.
Yes,
So
it will.
it won't. You can sit right here all day long and try to convince people not to cut off their children's foreskin, but that later down the line, that parent's going to make a decision about something else. It might not be
You think that people aren't influentiable?
I never said it. I believe people are 100% programmable, but they're much more programmable to the other side. According to Jeff, yeah, he's not programmable. So
I haven't changed my position. I still don't think it's a problem. If somebody wants to circumcise their kid, I'm not going to interfere with it.
In and of itself, I agree. It's not that big of a deal. The reason we do it is because there are no reasons. And if reasons are a reason, then there are much better ones to use.
Jeff, did you call your mom? What did she say?
Yeah, she told me this weird story about how in World War II, she said it came from my grandfather. My grandfather told her this, that in World War II, a lot of the soldiers were not circumcised, and when they would go in the lakes and the waters and stuff, they would get infections and diseases.
Yep,
so when they came back from World War II, there was this big trend all of a sudden to circumcise because of what the soldiers had experienced in World War II. And she said that in our culture, it's so normal that it's almost automatic. Like she doesn't even remember she just knows. You just know when you go in the hospital that they're going to circumcise. And so when you have the baby and they hand it to you and it's circumcised, that's all part of the norm. Like, so it wasn't even a process or anything she had to think about. It was completely automatic. And she knew going in that we were all going to be circumcised.
I noticed the connection, what I was saying before about making a warrior class of men by traumatizing them as babies. And you said that about World War II.
It's not trauma.
It's not trauma. Like I'm
sorry. I haven't met a single man where any of his anger, aggression, mental health, if you want to call it, schizophrenia, any type of mental health issues have come from the circumcision. It's always come from some other type of abuse. Because I'm a man. I've talked to plenty of men.
This topic right here. Okay. So if you have them, put the link in the back.
And if there is, it's a very minute, small part of men with circumcisions who have emotional trauma. Because in effect, my earliest memory is of my mom and dad fighting when I was a baby. I'm sorry, not even a baby. I couldn't have been older than 3 or 4. My son was circumcised the day he was born. So to
Do you
sit here
have
and
to
say
consciously
that
remember something in order for it to be traumatizing?
there is no way you're going to ever convince me that
I know.
circumcision from literally the
It's
day after
really
birth
hard
is
to
going to
show the
confirm some
connection
type
to
of
something that you don't
issue.
remember.
Do you
No, I
have to
agree with you
remember
cannot
there,
something in
Richelle.
order
cannot
for it to be
it
Going back
traumatizing?
to
cannot be
agreement.
trauma if you don't remember it.
Okay, that's not true.
I agree that you don't have to consciously be able to recall the root of your trauma to actually be traumatized. But what I'm talking about with human nature is that everything is traumatizing. Being born is traumatizing. Giving
Yeah.
birth is
I think the
traumatizing.
birth process is probably way more traumatizing than getting
And
a
it
full
doesn't
picture.
end there. It's just human life.
Death
We have to adjust and adapt to suffering, or else being a warrior class is kind of prerequisite. You have to be, or else someone's going to take your shit, and that's why I want to get at the human nature argument, which is difficult. It makes people upset. It's work, but it is where the buck stops, because you can then refer back to it. And you don't have to agree with, say, Freud or Lacan or any of these guys that did like foundational work in explaining what the subconscious trauma does that makes conscious behaviors later manifest. Like, you don't have to agree with those guys to understand that people have deliberated over this and made hay. You pick up from their work and disagree or agree, but don't start with well, I shouldn't be worried about. Well, you can be worried or not, but like, does it change anything? And is there a good reason to feel so strongly? And that's where I agree with Jeff. There's not really a good reason to feel super strongly unless you're looking at other things in society and drawing the same blame to religion and revised history.
And I'm not telling you how I feel. Like, if this is an issue for you, I support your right to advocate around it all. I just don't have the same like emotional investment. Like, so for me, it's not. That's like vegans that think everybody should stop eating meat. Well, that doesn't move me enough to be interested in their cause.
And that's where I kind of agree with you, Jeff. For someone like me, I really don't care what you do in your personal life. It's your children. If you think mutilating them is the right way to go, societies and the laws that we have in place will correct you if your jurisdiction finds you to be at fault for breaking any laws. But where I agree with her, I also have to agree with my buddy the Satanist. As much as I don't like agreeing, it doesn't affect me on a personal level. Now, like with the whole, if your child, like if you don't support, a certain community, and it's not really about being a homophobe. It's just, if I see it as wrong, that's my choice. I get to live that way. And I'm going to bring up my son as, what I consider a traditional, if you want to call it Christian values, you grow up, you get a job, you find a wife, you have kids, you make a family, But when other people and it's a very, I know, not everyone who's a part of the LGBTQIA community supports everything that the small minority in them groups do. And, but there are, certain boundaries that I expect, if I have to respect your boundaries, then you have to respect my boundaries as a parent. If I say that I don't want my child exposed to this or this, and it's the same thing with heterosexualism. I don't like my son watching a straight couple make out on a TV show or a movie. I don't even let him watch that part of it. It doesn't matter whether they're gay, lesbian, 2 teddy bears. I don't care. Nope. It just comes down to, if it doesn't personally affect me or my child, that's up to you. And if you're breaking any laws, it's up to the state or like I said, your jurisdiction to uphold you to the laws you have broken. But until your actions and choices are starting to be impeded on my choices for my own child, that's when I draw the line, and I'll die upon that hill until I can no longer stand. That's all I got to say about it is, if it's not personally affecting me, I can't force you to go out there and to follow my values, because my values are my own, but to sit here and expect every single person, whether they believe in Buddha, Satan, Jesus Christ, or any other deity or no deity at all, just you can try and even with some people, you can present all the medical information you want to them, if people are set in their ways, they have their own personal choices. They're going to live that choice regardless of what you choose or what you tell them to do. So, to sit here and argue about this is redundant in the point that people are still going to do whatever it is they want to do until they've broken a law that is, handled by the jurisdiction. And laws are ever changing. One day it might be wrong to, mutilate your genitalia. Next day it could be, completely okay. So, I mean,
Homelander, should we not be having this conversation because what we say doesn't matter and we're not going to influence
I'm not saying
anyone?
you shouldn't have the conversation.
No, I'm
It's
glad
just
we did.
I'm just saying don't come into the, like, when I get on podcasts like with Jeff, I mean, they already know I'm Raccoon. I done changed my name to Homelander.
Oh, I thought you
yeah.
were familiar.
Yeah,
Okay.
y'all know me. They know me. I consider myself Christian in the aspect that, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in, the life of Jesus Christ. I believe in his message of love and peace and redemption and sacrifice for, that a man was able to love human beings. Because I don't know if I could put myself on the cross for anyone other than my own child. And a lot of people say, well, I'll put myself on the cross for my kid. That's bullshit. Not a single person that most human beings would not put themselves through anything that Jesus Christ put himself through for themselves, let alone a family member. So for someone with already, I guess if you want to call it what is it, biased or based perspective, a lot of the things that what are on these podcasts, I already disagree with, but I'm not one of them Christians that's going to be like, well, you're going to hell because you're gay, or you're going to hell because you're trans, or something like that. That's up to, the Lord. When you die and you're judged, if God says, my biggest point is I think God is the ultimate being of understanding. God may not be gay himself, but God understands the desire and urges and the perspective of what it means to be a human being, because he came down to experience it for himself. So to sit here and to say that you should not talk about it, no. But don't go in here expecting that you're going to change people's minds. That's something I'm trying to convince another person who gets on these panels.
I have never had a topic bring up as many things that this one did. Like, we were all the way in
topic,
ancient Mediterranean, Alexander the Great. We went all over the map with this topic.
But Homelander just made a beautiful point. Now I disagree that it's a sound or valid base to which you bias your sense of morality. Like, I know that's a lot of words, but I'm trying to be careful.
I understand. It's cool.
And well, I'm trying to tell Richelle maybe some of the temperament, what's the word here? Differences that she sees versus what I'm the reason that I'm upset or why I'm intense or why I insist on trying to get the thought out, because it's the same point I've been trying to make the whole time. The reason that we do things matters, and it hurts to establish a sound and valid reason, because you have to actually check your perception and start to defer to the reality. And both religion, the Judeo-Christian Islamic religion, is false. It can be proven false. There were people, but I agree with Homelander, so I don't want to pee on his parade. It's just his reason is based in something that he can explain. Now, I don't know if he's going to be open to persuasion on that if I showed him how it's untrue, or how other cultures had saviors, or how the Greeks and the Scythians used the word Christ before the Jews did. And I don't know if that would influence him or not, but it should, because if your reason is that if your reason is that influential in what and why you do, then the reason is everything. You can be neutral, Jeff, or someone else can have a different opinion about what someone should do with their kids, and another person can have a different. It could go on forever, but it's the commonality is, what is the reason that you think what you think? What is the reason that you do what you do? And have you grown up enough to connect your conscious reason to your effect, or are they all just one big mixed up shit show? And for most people, it's the latter.
And you see it as harm. Like, one of your reasons is you see it as a form of violence.
No, I didn't say
or
that.
Abuse.
Who are you talking to? Me?
Richelle. So if that's how you see it, if that's how it looks, then your opposition to it makes perfect sense. I just don't see it as the violence that you see it as. So it's not even your reasoning. We're just seeing the issue. It's having different emotional weight with us when we look at it.
I would love to talk about the definition of violence and why you don't see it as violence.
To do what?
I would love to talk about the definition of violence and why you don't see it as violence.
Let's start with a dictionary. because it's a medical procedure.
So are no medical procedures violence?
Behavior or treatment in which physical force is exerted for the purpose of causing damage or injury. So I don't think the purpose of circumcision is to cause damage or injury. Intense force or great power, extreme or powerful emotion or expression. So I think it's the intent to cause harm or damage.
A lot of people consider violence is equal to coercion. So if it's coercive, and you can disagree with that definition, but that is how political scientists use it. And they take it too far now, but it's still, if it coerces an outcome, because say you don't pay your rent, and you're going to get evicted, that's coercive. And some people say, I have to do it because if I don't, there's going to be this bad outcome. So it's coercing me to do this. And that's violent because it forces me to do something.
Is surgery violent? I mean, like, there's nothing. Is there anything particularly violent about circumcision that wouldn't apply to any medical procedure?
Not if you volunteer for it.
I think it's about consent. So I don't quite like that definition of violence that you said. I don't think that the intent matters. I think something
the
could be
dictionary version.
Yeah, but which
you can't make up your own
I'm
definition.
open to any. We can work with.
We all have our own definitions for all words. Language is anarchic.
What would you?
When I say violence, I don't consider intent when I use the word violent.
Okay,
I can.
How? Wait, I want to hear her how you use it.
How I use it? It's physically acting on someone's person or property, and then without their consent. So most medical procedures, the patient gives their consent.
Yeah, we're using different definitions of violence.
Yeah. So I think that when it comes down to it, I think it's immoral to do a painful procedure on a child without medical necessity.
What defines necessity?
What defines necessity? If it's necessary for the good health of the child.
What defines good health? And I'm not trying to be pedantic, like really, what is good health? And what's that? So like if you keep a brain in a vat or you keep someone on life support, is that healthy? I would suspect that as we go down that trail, we're going to have to start separating mental, physical, and then make some agreement or disagreement, whether it's mental, physical, and spiritual. The spiritual category, health and good health is complicated. Humans are complicated. We have different stages of development, and I agree.
I think saying that something is complicated is just a way of getting out of, is a good way of weaseling your way out of recognizing obvious moral truths.
Well, what makes them I think you can feel, and the thing is, I don't necessarily disagree with you because you haven't made the case yet, and you're anticipating that I'm going to disagree with you.
What case haven't I made?
What's that?
What case haven't I made?
You haven't made the case per the questions that I'm asking, and you're anticipating that it's going to be futile, so you're getting kind of shitty about it. Is what I'm saying. So, like, good health.
I'm asking you, what case haven't I made?
I'm asking what determines good health. You said, okay, so we went from violence to necessary, and you're saying it's necessary if the outcome is tied to a child's good health. I'm saying what defines good health? What parameters make
absence
for good
of physical bodily dysfunction? Normal function.
Well, hold on. Actually, let me ask this question. You have kids, right?
Me, yeah.
If you have kids, did you get them vaccinated?
I'm not going to answer that.
See, so we have inconsistencies, and that's a problem.
I'll just say this. If you got them vaccinated, then your entire argument's redundant because to sit here and say that, because as much as I'm with vaccines, I'm a conspiracy theorist through and through. I don't trust my government 100%. So, I already to an extent don't trust my government. I won't go into details either, but the last time my child got vaccinated, I was very adamant against it. I sat right there and told the nurse and the doctor that I didn't want it done, that I don't trust them, and I have very good reasons for it. My child's last vaccination was 3.5 years ago. He is still to this day living with a nodule on his leg from where they held him down as he cried and screamed and looked me in the face and said, "Don't let them poke me." They poked him in his leg, and he's still living with a nodule 3.5 years later. That's probably going to have to be biopsied and checked for cancer because it's still huge, it's still swollen, still purple, still causes him pain. So to sit here and say that you're against body mutilation, body modification of children, just like with me, and then to sit here and allow people to inject your children with God knows what. I'm
He's
not saying that
against
the
it.
vaccines
He's
don't
against it.
protect your children,
by the way.
but
So
you can't sit here and be against one medical procedure, but then even though it's not technically mutilating
yeah, but
them,
people are not
you're
always
still
rational.
injecting your child. You're still allowing a stranger to hold down your child. That's like going to a meth house or a heroin house where they're shooting up in their arms, and then you know how they use insulin needles to usually inject, and you think that they're giving your child insulin because they're diabetic and they're injecting them with, heroin. I mean, the whole premise of it is you can't sit here and say that removing your child's foreskin is bad or getting a child's ear pierced is bad, but then completely okay with how many injections a child is given throughout their lifetime, including you, who had no say so with your parents through coercion of being told either your child gets vaccinated or you're put in jail. The same thing with the school system, which I think is 100% wrong. If my child does not learn at the same pace as other children, I don't think, personally, I'm against public schools because I had trouble in public schools. I barely survived with my life on multiple occasions. I quit early
you
at
don't
school.
think other people should go to them because of that?
No, personally, I just think it really depends on the parents and the child. Personally, for me, with the way how your world's getting, I don't trust sending my child to a school knowing that a man can walk in with multiple firearms, and even if the police show up, they're probably not gonna do anything to save your child.
So it's
Because
not education. You're talking about the
well,
setting,
okay,
the school setting itself.
okay, I shouldn't even call it education. Let me call it indoctrination or internment camps, because all it is just a place for your children to go to either learn to continue to be in the machine. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Jeff. I'm sorry whether you like to admit it or not.
Let me say it
If
this way. That was
school was
not my
about finding
experience of it, and
the
it was not
smartest
my experience
people,
of it when I
I
was
can
working.
guarantee you that the smartest people are already found early in life in their academics. They don't keep children in school so that way they can go and learn literature and life skills. Your parents were teaching their kids how to do these very things for hundreds of years before the school system was ever introduced or forced upon people. School is only there so that way they can get that $140,000 per child a year, and so that way they can teach your children how to continue in the rat race that is called work life. I can guarantee you that I'm talking about like
We went to different schools.
the top
You and I just went to
1%,
different schools.
the top 1% of intellectuals. I'm talking about the people in school who are 2 or 3 grades above the grade that they're supposed to be in. Those people, they already know about them children. The children who are in like first grade but have, a third grade reading level or a third grade math level, them kind of students are already picked and targeted to get specific types of quote unquote catering to. Most of the failures in school, they're only forced to continue going to school because it allows their parents to continue their jobs and to also, I hate to say it, but
Raccoon, what would you have them do instead of go to school? Like, what should we do with our kids?
I personally don't find anything wrong with school. I think if a parent, no, this is where I diverge from most people. As much as I will attack a subject, there are many times where I can look at a certain topic and see the good in it as well as the bad. That's where I defer. I'm not just here to like argue against stuff. I can also see the good in things.
I want someone else to have a chance to get in if they want to. Anyone else have anything to say about
school? Is still an introduction, and you shouldn't vaccinate your children.
I can wait for other people to go, but I would love to get a word in on that.
No, go ahead. Yes, please.
Thanks.
Yes.
I hear you, Jeff. You're saying you had a good experience in school. I probably did too. I was, raised by parents that, did the whole suburban. It was the 80s, man. Like things were different. And so there's number one, there's a big difference between when we went to school and what's
The
going on
80s
now.
were fun. That's part of the problem is
Heck
the
yeah.
new generation, like they missed out on growing.
I do agree. I do agree that different generations play a big part in how different generations grow up. I do agree because my parents who were born in the 60s had a pretty decent time in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, and it wasn't until my brother, he's in about his late 40s, so when he started going to high school, that's when I noticed by the time I was in middle school that, like, dude, there are kids in middle school who are already acting like they're grown. I mean, there are kids having sex in my classroom when the teacher walks out. If that doesn't tell you there's something wrong with my generation, something's fucking wrong with you.
Income disparity plays a big part in it too. But let me try to make one little in a capsule. The point of going to school is what we should be looking at. And as parents or even students, we don't have the time, capacity, or like, it's not up to us to determine what the curriculum is. People who have presumably, hopefully,
speak for yourself.
presumably, hopefully, gone to school to educate themselves about the process. Like when children are at different ages, they're going to be more or less receptive to different types of teaching. People hopefully have gone to school to make the global.
Wait, so you're saying trust the expert?
I'm saying each of us are guilty of making the local comparison rather than the global comparison. In other words, we will look at our experience and what is right in front of our face to say, that's how it is, instead of stepping back to look at how it actually is on a much larger scale. That's one problem. The second problem
teaching
is
isn't that complicated.
The third problem is teaching is very complicated, as humans are. And
no,
here's
it's
the
not.
point. What is it's so smart of you saying, no, it's not. It is. You're killing it here, Richelle. You're killing it. The point
well, if you would stop talking for 2
2
seconds and let somebody else get in.
What is the takeaway?
Have you ever homeschooled a child? Trust me, teaching is not easy.
I
homeschool my children.
The point is, what are they supposed to be taken away? Are they supposed to be self-sufficient? Are they supposed to have devices that they can use intellectually, emotionally? It should be all of those things. It's a broad, encompassing subject, education. And the more we get, the better. But the problem is the standard that they use. Education, what that's supposed to mean, has been poisoned. They're not educating. They're doing standardized tests, and teachers are too new.
Part of that was No Child Left Behind, because they did differently before that. I watched that start to creep in.
Well, there's a lot of other things that have changed in society since Laura Bush did that shit show. But I just think there's a lot of things that we got to look at. People mostly don't have the patience for it because we're in the habit. This is a human nature problem. This is why we need actual experts, not pretend experts as authority, but people who have an actual expertise in the matter to help determine what the curriculum is based on in different areas, different income brackets, different generations, different grades. They're all going to have different considerations. And all of that has been thrown out for the pageantry, for the, oh, how's your kid doing in school? Or, oh, have a good summer. It's just the routine, just like circumcision. The reason is out, and what's in is make it look good while we're doing it. And the fact of the matter is, when kids are getting out of school, they're not educated. They can't deliberate. They can't speak for themselves. They don't know how to source and cite actual data. They don't know how to separate from their emotions and look at the global rather than the local comparison. And everyone thinks that they're some like expert just because they feel strongly about it. And those trends get worse and worse and worse, as well as the problems get magnified along the fault lines I mentioned: income, generation, all those things. If education actually educated, awesome. It doesn't. That's the problem.
I don't know how we got on this topic, but I actually do homeschool my kids. There's only 2 of them, so it's a lot easier than being a public school teacher.
What's their grade levels?
Kindergarten and 3rd grade. It's not that hard. It's not complicated. And homeschoolers have better outcomes than public school kids, which a lot of that could be self-selection bias, but you definitely can't just say nobody could do it right or whatever. Like, it's an option. It's a good option if you do it right. It can also be done badly.
I think so too.
I think private schools could definitely be increased. I'm against the public school system completely.
Here comes trouble.
I heard someone talking good things about private schools.
Lib, are you circumcised or not?
Yes, I am circumcised.
Well, before we get to that, let's get to what the audience really is here for. Are you circumcised?
Yes. I was born in America, and
Okay.
my
Do
family
you have
were
any strong thoughts
WASPs.
about it?
I mean,
WASP circumcised too? We were trying to figure out which cultures did.
yeah, it's a broadly Protestant. A lot of Protestants do.
Is it a
Just kind of
class
out of.
marker too?
I don't think so, because I mean I've known people of all different, social strata who've been circumcised. I think it's a American Christian thing broadly,
Even though
because
it's
it's
Jewish
not.
and
Well,
Islamic?
yeah, but I mean, like here in America, being circumcised is a American Christian thing. At least it seems to me. Um, I did want to say, so you think private schools are a better system than the public school system?
Yeah.
Richelle.
Yep. I'm against the public school system.
Okay. Why?
Because so the problem at the heart of it is that it's paid for through coercive taxation. And so if people have
Oh,
the freedom to
you're an ANCAP. You're an ANCAP. That's
yeah,
right. That's
yeah.
why you hate. Yeah. Okay.
So
Then
not a school itself, but the taxation.
yeah.
issue around it.
Your problem is not that like public education is definitionally less efficient. Your problem is the taxation.
Well, both. I think that because our system doesn't have competition, and it's even worse than in most places in Europe, because you have to go to school where your zip code is. You don't even have like
Yeah.
choice about which
Yeah.
school you go to.
Yeah.
That
I just
makes
want to
it
mention that
worse.
most European countries have pretty robust public school systems.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's less bad because they could choose which school. They don't have to go to the school that they're zoned for. They don't. They could choose which school. So there's some
well, it
choice
kind of
and
depends
competition
on.
mechanism.
I disagree
Depends.
with that.
It depends on which country you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah, because
UK,
I lived in Germany for 6 years. They didn't get a choice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Germany. It does.
yeah, but I mean, I'm sure Richelle probably doesn't like Germany because she thinks they're too socialist. But
Yeah.
Neither
yeah,
did the Jews, but that's okay.
yeah, you don't get a choice here either.
Right.
And I do agree that there are definitely reforms to our public sector, our public school system that need to happen. Some pretty radical reforms, I would argue.
Yeah.
But I guess okay, so like taking away from the taxes, right? Because like we're never gonna have a system where like we're gonna be able to provide a service via voluntary taxes or whatever. Like we have the system we have, so I
Never
guess
say
like
never.
well, no. I'm Richelle. I'm an anarchist. Okay, believe me. I never say never. However, if we're talking about in sort of the immediate sense, right? What could be done today, right, in policy that would improve
Right.
the school systems? Do you still think that we should favor private schools over public schools?
Yeah,
Or
I think that school choice is a pretty good policy.
that's the charter schools, right? That's just private schools. That's just giving money to private schools, right?
Yeah, basically, like the money goes to the parents, like an EBT card. You go to any grocery store and buy what groceries you want. So it would be like an
Like
educational
keep the money
fund.
with the child.
Yeah, and then the parents could choose
Yeah.
their educational
I
option.
kind of like that idea too.
I mean, I would be more for this if it were not for the fact that, at least to my knowledge, most of the private schools that I've seen are, depending on your area, most private schools are going to be very, very religious based.
I think that's because of the system we have
That
right now.
You think?
Very few.
don't make that assumption add that in a factor because that could not be the case. I think that's a
Like
side tangent that's just going to complicate the issue.
I think that people
Let's
who are
just
very
assume
religious
you
are
can
going
make
to
the
be.
private schools whatever you need them to be for that region.
Well, yeah, but like we don't want to like just switch over to the system before we have the system in place to properly do it, right? Like we don't want to like you wouldn't want to like implement this like literally tomorrow before there are if like there's the vast majority of schools are like very heavily religious. Like you wouldn't want to then get rid of the public school and just do this charter thing and then be like, well, the market will eventually sort it out, because like we're talking about kids' education. It's important. You know, we want to
Well, I
make sure to
mean,
have all the things in place before we.
the Christian private schools, you couldn't even get in them right now. They have long wait lists.
Yeah, no, they do.
We need to
And also
greatly
some of them are very limited by faith. They can exclude parents by
Yeah.
the parents' faiths, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't.
Well, right now, I mean, the parents are paying, so they can do whatever they want, right?
Well, they can't do whatever they want. There are
Well,
limitations.
within reason, but they can
Sure,
choose
but I think
sure,
but like they can't be like, we don't want you because you're black. They can't do that. And I think
right.
similarly, I don't think they should be like, we don't want your
Who
student
does that
because
anymore?
oh, come on.
Do you think there's
Okay.
schools out
No.
there 2024
No,
that we
Jeff.
don't want your kid?
Jeff, no, what I'm saying is that's a thing they can't do. And similarly to how they can't do that, I think they shouldn't be able to discriminate based on religion, especially if they're an educator. You know, if their
Like,
if
but
their
what if it's
goal
like
is
where are you?
if their
Are
goal
you on the
is
road?
to
Look at that, Scott. Wow.
That's
Is
gorgeous.
that are you in the US? Oh, no sound, just video.
Yeah.
Oh, I love stuff like this.
It looks high.
I feel like I'm getting out.
Hell yeah. My thing is, I don't want to, you know, start advocating for this or agreeing with this without like the stipulations and understandings that like a lot of groundwork would need to be laid before this, because this would be something that you would ideally like to replace our public sector, right? To some degree, at least. I am curious what your opinion is on like the regulation of those schools. Should we keep that section of the public education sector, or like how do we regulate education then if we're trying to rely primarily on private school?
See, this is the problem with school choice as a policy, because if you're collecting coercive taxation and giving it to parents when it is going to school, that's going to come with strings attached, and there's going to be regulations. And so a lot of people who are like really, really, really far libertarian are against the policy of school choice because they don't want the private Christian schools to be regulated.
That's so crazy.
I'm
not saying you're wrong, Richelle, but it's just libertarian, right? I was a registered libertarian back when it felt cool. Penn and Teller did this series on Showtime called Bullshit, and it's kind of like Adam Ruins Everything, where they go through. Have you seen that? Okay,
yeah,
it's good
I've
stuff.
Seen Adam Ruins Everything.
Well, Teller recently said, "Screw that, I'm out of here. This libertarian party is poisoned."
The American Libertarian Party and American libertarians more broadly tend to be oftentimes a wacky group.
No, that's what I'm getting at, Lib. That's what I mean. Perhaps if the ideals that are supposed to inform the party's ethos or end were, you know, if people were consistent in the political ideology that they claim to be, which most of them are going to say they're constitutional originalists and they believe in small government and they have all these terrible arguments that they just sustain each other in. And of course, the internet makes it so much easier for them to mix and meld their retardations together with. But it still is a fact that their political explanation for why they are this, that, or the other is just garbage. And it's so upsetting to me because none of this can be worked out. None of it. That's what it's like. I enjoy being here. I'm appreciative that Jeff and Chris let me come on here and, you know, get all rowdy and upset and try to exercise some of this intensity inside of me. But it's like, it's futile. I've been doing this for the past couple of years trying to deliberate, and I'm back where I started. It's stupid. I'm going back to music. I'm going to try to make friends. I like Jeff. I like Chris. I like Lib. I like Moose. I like how casual and real it is here. But if we're actually trying to deliberate politically, whether that's economically, on education, on the difference between state and federal, the difference between one country and another, on any difference, on any level, there's no freaking way. We're screwed. We're done.
Well, well, I mean, yeah, but in America, yes, because of our two-party system, and then
The
our other
rest of the
parties,
world
like,
is just as
yeah,
bad, my man, because they're reliant on that intercontinental global, economy. And
I mean,
oil runs the world, and bad assumptions and bad religions and poisoned
yeah.
institutions undergird everything if we're lucky.
No, I mean,
And for the rest of the world, most of the population is not in the West. So for the rest of the world, they're even worse off because you got China and, it's not
Tim,
good news for them either.
I'm a communist,
listen,
okay? I agree with all of these frustrations at the state of the world, but the state of the world is the state of the world. And, moving forward in practical terms, there are things that can be done, and we
I'm
just
so
need to
eager to hear those.
we just need to do that. Well, I mean, like, we just have to have the political will to do them. I mean, there's
The
tons of
political
things.
will. What about human nature that negates any kind of individual will? Even if you can get it straight, like I think where'd our buddy go?
Wait, hey, Tim,
Homelander.
what do you mean by that? What you just said about human nature negating individual will?
Human nature negating the quality of will that individuals could have. If there are individuals who are able to excel in what Lib said in practical terms, if they can pin it down in practical, presumably linear terms, where there's like a bullet point, we can go this and then that. If you can get that going, then human nature will always work against that. So you get back to this problem of having the elite versus the plebes. You're always going to have that. Unless the plebes want to be better, there are too many plebes. Yeah. So you just got to get yours and screw the rest.
Well, also though, it is worth noting that this dichotomy of like the ruler and the ruled, that this
people
kind
who
of
know
hierarchy,
better, people who affect and people who are affected. I mean, I can make a different device.
No. I understand what you're getting at. This kind of relationship, though, I don't think it's like.
It's not.
I don't think it's right to call it innate human nature, because we know that it has existed for as long as we've had written history, right?
Not one static form, though. It changes
No.
shape.
In a lot of different. Yeah, no. It's a lot of different forms. But the thing to remember is that human history goes far beyond what we like written history. Humans, what we would describe as humans, have been around for is it 100,000 years? Jeff, you might know this more than
contention about that.
Jeff,
before
you might
the Iron
know
Age, we just don't
wait. What do I know?
How long have humans existed? What we could like modern humans? Isn't it like 100?
Let me ask the AI.
Yeah, the AI probably. That's a simple answer. I'm pretty sure.
While Jeff looks that up, though, consider this. What you're considering human is not always human. Our consciousness makes us more or less human. And there was a point, presumably, where we didn't
around
have
vocalize. 200. No. That's talking about like modern humans. Like you could probably.
Oh, it says if you specifically mean Homo sapiens, the answer is around 200,000 years.
Yeah, that's
the oldest fossils date back to that time period.
So it's probably around 100,000 years. In the Dark Bronze Age,
there were earlier hominids 7 million years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, like I don't know too much. I don't think we know enough about early hominids and their differentiation between us to make a comparison. But I like 200,000 years in a geological scale.
We know enough by looking at tools and settlements and
those are all
migration areas.
Those are all a lot. Those are all a lot newer than 200,000 years, though.
Yeah, I'm talking about they develop. They're not parallel. It's not like we're just picking up on one and saying, "Oh, we don't know the other one." They develop. It's linear. You can connect the cause and effect, and go back as far as you can, and you can see eventually the cause is very, very basic. Humans are not what we think of as humans. We can go back that far.
Well,
now,
no.
The question is, are there things like Atlantis that precede it? Was there a civilization before that has been lost to time? As far as we go,
no. I mean, like my point is that human societies in their sort of like smaller scale existed for a long time without the kinds of hierarchies that exist
not
today.
Very well, though. They weren't happy. They didn't live long.
Well, how come they show up in the primate kingdom? How do they disappear out of us and then reappear if they show up in the primate kingdom?
What do you mean in the what do you mean show up in the
hierarchies?
primate kingdom?
You
that's
said
a great
humans
question,
have lived
Jeff.
all these years without hierarchy, but the primates that we descended from have this.
Oh,
so how did they disappear out of
without
humanity
hierarchy.
and then suddenly reappear?
No, not without hierarchy, without the specific ruler and ruled hierarchy that has dominated most of human written history.
But that's why I said there are many different types, and you're like, oh no, I know there are different kinds. That's the point. There are different kinds. The dynamic continues to manifest. It's not forced on people. It manifests.
Well, it's more of like a it's that kind of hierarchy is useful for civilization forming. It's useful if you have just one person kind of at the top who makes all the decisions, especially once you get a big enough society. It makes everything much more streamlined.
But I'm talking about on a lower level, just on a social level. Even if you have a group of people, 100 people, let's say, out of that 100 people, you're going to have the shot callers and the ballers, and then you're going to have the people that wish.
Well, yes,
and that's the dynamic that manifests in greater systems. But Lib, the point I'm taking you to task for
you're talking about
view of humans is too ideal. Like it's too idealistic. Humans suck. We suck. It's not the overlord's fault. The overlords are not because humans are incapable of managing their own affairs.
You guys are going in circles.
I don't think humans suck inherently. I think the difference.
That's what I'm saying. I do. That's the disagreement.
I think human sucking is more of a product of our environment than a product of human existence.
Then Jeff's question is, why do we see it even if conditions change? If the environment changes, why do we still see it? Even when we're a different animal or species? Like we can link this. And that's the thing I'm taking issue with. You think that if people were given an opportunity or given resources, they would flourish or thrive, and they don't. They suck. We take conveniences and we say, give me convenience or give me death. And then the other people are like, wait, I actually see more going on here, so I'm going to get mine. And that explains the division. It's not people being held under somebody else. They hold themselves down.
My contention with Jeff is it's not semantic, but it does have to do with what specifically he's talking about, because there are certain cases where hierarchies were imposed upon groups of like the alpha wolf thing, right? Jeff, are you aware of like the whole alpha wolf thing?
Yeah,
how it's not really.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work like that. Now, I do think there are hierarchies. There are like within like closer.
I'm familiar with that study. Alpha wolves do exist, but they don't exist as exclusively like some people thought before. They have betas, gammas, deltas. They have all different kinds of hierarchies. Still, even though that study that came out about wolves that said there's no alpha wolves, that doesn't just mean there's no hierarchy.
Well, it's not that there's no alpha wolves. It was that basically the observations from the original study. Yeah, the observations.
But Lib, you have a point about like imposed hierarchies and emergent hierarchies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
my connection is blinking out. I'll come back when it stabilizes.
Okay. I'll just keep rambling, which is fine. I was doing that before. But yeah, like the point of this being that these hierarchies, I think, are largely more of a product of society rather than humans' innate nature. I think that there's a lot of things that people can say about human innate nature.
How do you know? How can you tell?
Oh, this is just like
call?
It's a judgment call. It's the same as saying it is human nature is a judgment call. Me saying it isn't human nature, that human nature doesn't exist, is also a judgment call. We have the exact.
Are you saying human nature doesn't exist? Are you a blank slatist? I did not know.
Yeah, these internet trans loving commies, they have to.
How can you be trans and a blank slate?
Liv, are you saying that these things just develop? It's not because people are evil and we developed the evil fucking hierarchy structure? You're saying?
I mean, there are definitely people who can, I hesitate to, like, in this very serious conversation, call people evil, but like, yeah, there are people who can do lots of evil shit consistently,
and they are the ones who create the structure, not the average shitty guy. All right.
Yeah, well, not even necessarily. A lot of these structures can be created and even perpetuated by people who are just living their lives, because it's easier to just kind of do what everyone else is doing than
More
to.
evidence that they're created by human nature, if that was the argument going on here.
Now, if you don't anticipate those evil people, though, then, in my opinion, you deserve to fail. There's survival of the fittest and will to power. And if you ignore that, then the only way to ignore that is by pretending there's no such thing as human nature. But what I'm saying is, from birth, whether it's circumcision or the birth process itself, there's trauma. We're traumatized. Life is hard. Life is pain. You have to adapt and then exercise higher order thinking. And the people who survive are the ones who excel at saying, okay, this is tough, but so what? I'm still going to do better. The people that don't, they don't deserve to be given resources and ways out, in my opinion. That's where I'm at after all my studies.
Now you're just talking about social Darwinism, and I don't prescribe to social
Darwinism, but by different standards, not the old school, generic one. I'm talking about what I've seen in life, and I'm more about a Nietzschean thing, because there's a romantic aspect that's more important than the actual, nuts and bolts physical one. Nietzschean, not what Weberian or I don't know. Spencer Hoover, who was social Darwin. It doesn't matter. Nietzschean, not what you said.
Social Darwinism.
Yeah, I think that's Spencer Hoover. So more Nietzsche, not Hoover.
That's fair. Blank slatist is. I'm not sure what all that necessarily means, but
it sounded like you dismissed human nature, like you said you don't believe in human nature, and that caught me off guard.
I mean, I don't believe. I believe that there are certain biological instincts that humans have that other animals may or may not have.
You don't believe in
no, I do believe in drives and instincts, and I believe all of those things are present in basically every animal that has the brain capacity to experience those things. But I don't think the capacity to experience or do those things says anything about humans innately. I don't think humans are innately evil or humans are innately good. I think humans are animals. We exist and we. You're right. No, I'm going to loop this back to circumcision, okay? And this is why.
Oh, circumcision. Don't feel obligated.
Talking about circumcision, golly day. Really? Oh, we said everything we needed to on that.
Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. I forgot what you was
going. And this is why circumcision is just as bad as female genital mutilation.
Amen, brother.
And it's
that's my Nietzsche thing. Some people have taken much advantage of the hierarchical differences. Okay, there are systemic problems, poisoned institutions, things that skew the incentives in favor of the worst elements in society. I'm not saying,
of course, capitalism. Yeah.
But I do think that the people that can see through it and start to develop technology or alternative ways around, or go against the herd because the herd's going towards a cliff. These are the exceptions should make for the incentive, not the norms. Like kids are getting circumcised. Oh, it's supposedly secular, so just let it keep happening, rather than visiting better reasons. Or let's send our kids to school over and over again, even though they're not getting educated, because if they're not in school, then we're bad parents. Let's look at what education is supposed to be. That's my point. Let's look at the reason, and let's try to make ourselves into as much of Ubermenches as we can together, using good reason and proper incentives.
Sure, I can summarize that. Let's all be utilitarian. That's nice and cool.
No, I'm saying if there's any chance of surviving, people will take the exception and fight against others. But if you fast forward, you'll find that it's futile. You got to be on your own and get what you can, because society's burning. Ship is going down.
Richelle had
nonsense.
Richelle had something to say.
Too late.
Before, when you were talking about I don't even know how to describe what you were talking about before, about when we were in the beginnings of our human stage. I put up this graphic that I made about the different levels.
Here, I'll throw it up again.
But then you guys kept talking and it passed.
Here, I'll throw it up again. Go ahead.
600 million years, and
it looked like spiral dynamics.
Yeah, it's inspired by that, but it's not exactly like it. It's my take on it. And so 300,000 years, we've been humans, pretty it's a rough estimate. It's like hard to define what a human is. We've had the family, and like we lived in tribes, and it wasn't like exactly like not hierarchical, but it was
They were
not.
very
There
they were
wasn't.
very low to the ground hierarchies. It was
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
hierarchy was like it's more like what I would look at it and think are like more like just hierarchies, like you'd have
Yeah.
the person who knew how to hunt really well and they were deferred to on all the hunting stuff. There was someone who knew how to make tools really well and they were, and so like you had those kinds of hierarchies.
And we assume that your hierarchy was present in what you're talking about now, meaning he wouldn't be far off making decisions for you. Your hierarchy at this point would be involved in the shit.
Yeah, no, that's we're talking about stage 2, which is that's like families. And yeah, I don't actually find too much issue with
There's
at least
a lot
the top
more though. There's different
top
cultures. There's different timelines. What about the Hegelian take? Is anyone familiar with the Hegelian take? Where you got culture and then counterculture, and it keeps moving. You got technology, you've got developments. We're moving towards.
Yeah, I'm not sure Hegelian dialectics works as well for civilization humanity though.
No, fair point, because we're not right. Sure, but it still works. It's just a different arc. What I'm saying is, yes, this may be true, but the human story, like what was
societies are just much smaller.
Well, and you've got people that are disconnected by mountain ranges and bodies of water. So you've got differences in developments that tend to homogenize later because of things like media and technology. There are reasons that draw it together.
Railroads, all of these things.
All that good
roads,
stuff.
Yeah.
It brings it together, but it's easy to look at it from now as one thing, when really in reality, there are so many different threads there in the beginning. It's a useful device, but I don't think it gives an accurate description of the human story. Because
I don't think it's meant to be like an accurate description of human story. I think it's supposed to be a broad overview. And I think it does that pretty well, actually. I actually would love to hear, even if not right now, Richelle, I would love to hear, like, I guess your take on all that stuff. Because especially once it got down to that last stage where it was talking about was the word something unification. You're muted, Richelle, by the way.
Look, I'm gonna dip out, guys. You're so sweet, Lib. I think this is a crock of shit. Still, it's just about fucking getting smarter and getting at it, man. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. And
so that's all I got to say.
I'm actually a doomer too, Tim.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right, I'll say
Tim, I hate I got here late because I would have loved to hear your take on this shit, because I think I might have been with you on a lot of that shit.
Well, I appreciate you, Joe. I do, man. I appreciated getting to chat with you last time. You guys stay safe, be well, stay free, all that good stuff, and maybe I'll be a little more calm next time. Demons.
Oh,
you're fine.
You're one of the calmer.
I prefer the alternate.
Richelle, you were saying something.
Okay. Okay. So level 7, future integration, grand unification, functional system, polycentric, pluralistic, patchwork, voluntary government, no coercion, post scarcity, robots plus AI plus VR and AR.
Okay, so you're like a full what's the trying to remember what's the non-dystopian version of Cyberpunk 2077? Fuck.
I didn't know there was a word for it.
Techno futurism.
Yeah, sure.
It's
optimistic. Well, I guess I'm not sure if this is what we're gonna get. This is what I would like society to go to.
Sure, yeah.
This is my aspirational goal for what the next stage of humanity is.
Don't sell yourself short. Those were all logical leaps. In order for it to succeed, you'd have had to have a lot of those things. The technology would have been a part of. Yeah, it was logical.
I'm familiar. I'm an ANCOM. Okay, look, I have to think about the future, and then people say, "Oh, that's insane," about my shit too. So it's fine. I get it. I like it though. I don't think it's like necessarily.
Lib, if it does succeed, what will it look like if not what she's talking about?
Oh no, I mean, yeah, like I agree. If the most, I guess, the best version of our world that would come about via like that sort of techno futurism, ideology would probably be something along that. Something probably, Richelle, would like Star Trek, even
Yes, Star
Federation,
Trek
would
is
that even be
yes,
that far off?
yes.
Like, because like people work jobs, they just don't. There's no money in Star Trek. It's just like people work jobs.
Replicator
Yeah,
machines and
you got
shit.
no
No
scarcity.
shortages of
Yeah,
scarcity. Yeah.
a lot of robots and
I'm not like
AI.
super familiar with Star Trek. I haven't
Okay.
like watched
Yeah.
a lot of it, but probably I'm not sure what the government system is.
It's like it's a representative democracy. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be like an idealistic version of what a United States-led world government.
Yeah.
I basically where like like post scarcity. They have machines that can literally create matter. So like they don't have to worry about fucking people starving to death or needing things because they can just make it. Because they can just make shit. Like the amount of people who actually need to work jobs is much lower. So like people will go out and like do things that aren't about them, like aren't like, oh, I need to do this because I need to have money to pay rent. It's, oh, I don't have to pay rent, so I'm free to go off and go learn and become a professor, or go learn and become an explorer, or I can go learn and become a welder and whatever.
Money is not really a big deal there. They got a certain currency. I don't know how they balance it, but I've heard people say about, well, what about how much money and what about this and that? And the captain, this is next generation's like, that's not really a thing. It's not what you think. This is we the people don't need money anymore.
Yeah. Once you reach like post scarcity, you kind of the need for money decreases significantly.
It's logical.
Which is
Richelle, do you want to open a stream?
Yeah, sure. If Liv, if you want to go talk on my channel, because I think Jeff wants to wrap it up. If you want to go continue this conversation on my channel.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your channel name?
Richelle, Moral Government.
I'll put the link.
Yeah, I just posted.
Put it.
You gonna put in
the
the regular
back,
chat or the back
put it
chat?
in the public.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna put
I'm just taking a break smoking. I'll probably,
I'll put it in the regular chat.
if it's all right, Michelle, I'll probably meet you over there too. I'm just taking a break from editing and I'm looking for somebody to conversate with.
Yeah,
and y'all
follow Richelle. She's
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know you had a channel. I know you've been on here before. I didn't know you had a channel though.
Yeah, I do. Not. I mean, I've got like 20 subscribers. Do I even? Maybe 10. I don't have many.
Look, that's you have a channel.
I
technically have a channel.
I went in this girl room with less than that, less subs than that, and like me, her, and her husband were the only people there. And I said something, and she muted me and said, "Don't make me put you backstage." And her husband snapped on it. He was like, "Bae, there's one guest. Relax. This is day one." She was so big the first day. She had shit in her head that she'd seen other people do for control and all of that shit. It was weird. So
yeah, did Jeff drop the link?
I've been waiting. I looked. Let me see again.
I think
I looked up Richelle.
Is it still Moral Government?
Oh, Moral Government.
Channel?
Yeah, Richelle, Moral Government.
Here.
Ah, there it is. Okay.
Well, I've said nothing all day.
Okay, this is Richelle's channel.
Around.
All right.
It's good to see everybody had a good productive discussion today. Love to see all you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like we just did shopping with you, Chris.
I've been listening. I just haven't. I hadn't had much. I already did the circumcision thing like with on debate long ago, and it didn't go anywhere then either. I just didn't feel like adding to it. But other than that,
it came up on PFU this morning, and I was surprised it was even an issue for people.
I'm shocked that it's well. I mean, I guess I'm not that shocked, but it does.
People have strong.
It does weird me out.
Yeah.
Well, people also have strong feelings about female genital mutilation, but for some reason, those feelings are the opposite.
Like circumcision is so much of a culture and secular norm at this point. Like for people to still have strong feelings in this day and age.
I mean, I have strong feelings.
But female genital mutilation is not a Western norm, so I can understand having strong emotions around that.
That's fair, I guess.
I don't really care about what's popular. I'm an ANCAP, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, don't worry. I get it. Don't worry. We'll go on your channel. We'll fight a little bit. All right.
Okay. And Cap, there's just come.
Yeah,
Well,
I think Richelle is
and
going to
Cap.
open up a stream on her channel, so I just posted the link.
Yeah,
you can follow her.
So.
Well, I'm saying bye, guys. I got to go and talk to these people.
Yep.
Have fun, Chris.
Bye.
Do what,
Bye.
Chris? Oh, bye. Take care.
So, but
okay.
But yeah, I guess I'll see you on your channel later, Richelle.
Okay.
Open up that stream, and I'll. See
Are you
later,
setting
Jeff.
it up now? I can post the
Yeah.
link now, or
Yeah,
I
I'll do it now. As soon as we get off here. I don't know. Can you be in 2 StreamYards at the same time?
No, but you can set it up. Are you just going straight live, or are you going to schedule it ahead of time?
Yeah, I'm just going to go straight live.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then in that case, go to Rochelle's channel after I end this one, and you'll see it start over there.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Jeff.
And we will be here again tomorrow, as usual.
See y'all later.
So everybody have a good rest of your weekend.
Bye.
And take care. Thanks, Richelle, for coming on. It was good talking to you again.
You too.
All right. My connection is bad. I don't even know if y'all can hear me right now. Anyway, I'm just gonna try to end this. Can y'all hear the music? The music's not even playing. The connection's so bad. Fuck. Well, anyway, there it is. All right. See you tomorrow. Did y'all hear that little bit of it? You too, Jack. Have a good one. We'll be back tomorrow for Satan only knows what topic. And then there's a whole bunch of streams tonight in the Channelverse. So, take care. You too, Anthony. Have a great night. Frank Owl.